Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was Trained by Anko. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. The arena had been fully restored from the damage Gaara and Naruto had inflicted during their fight, and now things would start again, much to the pleasure of the crowd. They had enjoyed the moment of peace and tranquility after seeing two amazing fights. During the break, people couldn't stop talking about the 4 genins they had seen. A lot of people had been impressed with them, and even the older shinobi in the crowd had been talking amongst themselves. But the subject that was discussed the most was without a doubt Naruto and the fact that he performed a jutsu that was considered legendary in the shinobi world. The Rasengan was known by almost every shinobi village, and seeing it performed by a genin was nothing short of amazing. The Sandaime was making his way back to his guest and looked around the crowd smiling when he heard the people talk about how much they enjoyed the matches so far. He hoped that nothing bad would happen, but somewhere deep he knew it wasn't meant to be. He had awoken that morning with a feeling that today would be a milestone in the history of Konoha, and that today he would have to fight for the survival of the village like every Hokage had to do before him. He just hoped that his old bones would be up to the task of defending the village he loved so much. He dismissed those thoughts when he saw the Kazekage looking his way. "Ah, Kazekage-sama, pardon me for leaving your company during the break. It seemed I lost track of time while talking to my young genins." Sarutobi apologized. "No worries, Hokage-sama. I'm sure you had some questions for the young genin who defeated my son Gaara. That truly was an amazing display." The Kazekage said, dismissing the man's apology. "Yes, I did wonder where he learned that technique, but he wasn't willing to tell me anything. Young ones will always have their secrets, won't they?" Sarutobi said while sitting down in his seat. "They sure will, but as his superior you could always order him to tell you, could you not?" The man said. "I could, but I'm afraid that's not the way to deal with young ones, especially Naruto. I prefer them to see me as a guide, one they can turn to in time of need, instead of that old man that orders them around." Sarutobi chuckled. Down at the arena, Genma was getting ready to start the third match of the finals, which would be Sabaku no Tamari versus Nara Shikamaru. He kind of felt bad for the rest of the genin who still had to fight. It would be hard for them to live up to the 2 first fights, but he was sure they would show the crowd a good fight. He had heard about this Shikamaru from his friend Asuma. Rumor was that while lazy, the guy was an actual genius when it came to strategic fighting. Genma looked towards the stand where his leader was sitting and received a nod indicating that it was time to start again. "Ladies and gentlemen, the field has been restored and we're about to begin the next match, so please take your seats," Genma called out. "The next match will begin in a few minutes, so would Sabaku no Tamari and Nara Shikamaru please come down." Up in the stands, Tamari just took her fan and jumped and glided down on her fan to the middle of the arena. Shikamaru, however, wasn't so eager to start the match. He was just getting comfortable watching the clouds in the sky. "This is so troublesome, why do I have to fight a girl?" he said while getting up. The rest of the genins just laughed, since they all knew how Shikamaru felt about doing things he thought were troublesome. "Come on, Shikamaru, just get down there and show them what you got," Ino said, trying to encourage her teammate who just looked at her funny. Ino was getting annoyed at her slow-moving teammate, so she grabbed him by the collar and just threw him into the arena, making the crowd burst out in laughter. Tamari, however, didn't appreciate the girl comment from before, so she was set on teaching him a lesson. When Shikamaru got to his feet, he muttered some words and made his way over to Tamari and Genma. When Genma dropped his hands, starting the match, Tamari wasted no time and she attacked with a huge blast of wind that covered the arena in dust. Her fan allowed her to create wind blasts and made her a long-range attacker. She knew that her opponent used his shadow to fight, so as long as she remembered to watch out for that, she was sure she could win the match without too much trouble. Shikamaru had used the terrain to hide from his opponent once the dust cleared. He was at a disadvantage since she had already seen his jutsu during the preliminaries, so he would have to plan this carefully. He quickly came up with a plan to lure her into his trap by making her underestimate him. He took out some of his kunai and shuriken and got ready to start his attack. Tamari was calmly waiting for Shikamaru to come out of his hiding place. She knew that he couldn't hide forever, so she waited and tried to conserve her chakra. While her attacks were enhanced by her fan, she always used chakra to enforce the effect of the attack. Therefore she had to save her strength in case this turned out to be a long battle. She was looking around the arena trying to find her opponent, but so far she hadn't found him. Suddenly she heard the sound of kunai and shuriken flying through the air and she smirked. She wasn't that weak to fall for something as basic as this, so she took her fan and blasted the projectiles away with it. The kunai and shuriken just scattered around the arena, not one had even come close to hitting her. You'll have to do better than that, I'm afraid. She called out, but just then a long pointy shadow appeared out of the dust created by her fan, heading straight for her. She quickly started retreating, trying to evade the shadow. After several feet the shadow stopped advancing and Tamari knew this was his limit. Quickly she measured the distance for future attacks. She grabbed her fan with both hands and attacked now that she had found Shikamaru, and she created a strong wind that even cut some of the trees in the arena. Shikamaru had no choice but to abandon his hiding place and jumped in the open. Finally stopped hiding. Tamari asked with a smile. It seems your shadow can only stretch that much, so if I keep my distance from you then you won't be able to catch me. You saw through my technique already. Not bad, guess I will have to try harder. Shikamaru said calmly. Problem is that I'm not really a fighter, I'm more of a support type, but I suppose that's shinobi life, right? While Tamari and Shikamaru were calmly talking, Naruto and the rest of the genin were observing the fight. Naruto was surprised to hear Shikamaru say that he would have to try harder, knowing that his lazy friend was anything but the hard-working type. Ino and Choji too were surprised even more than Naruto, and they looked towards their Junin teacher for an explanation. Asuma just chuckled at his students' faces and took out a new cigarette. Sensei, did Shikamaru just say he would try harder? Ino asked, perplexed. I guess he did, Ino. Don't be so surprised, Shikamaru has trained very hard this past month. Actually, we have Naruto to thank for that. Asuma said, looking at Ino. Me? What do I have to do with that? Naruto asked. During the preliminaries you said something to him that made him doubt his current way of doing things. After that he came to me asking to prepare him for the finals. Asuma said while looking at Shikamaru. Naruto wondered what he had said, but he couldn't really remember, so he would have to ask him later on. For now he was going to watch the match. In the arena things were starting to heat up again as Tamari and Shikamaru were preparing their next move. Shikamaru was holding some kunai again while Tamari just waited for the attack to come. Shikamaru grinned and threw one of his kunai towards her, but even before it reached her he detonated the explosive tag that he had wrapped around it, causing an explosion. This was meant so that he could hide once more from Tamari's attack. Tamari cursed. She had lost him again, and even though she wasn't hurt from the explosion, it had given her a scare. Searching the arena she wondered where her opponent had run to, knowing that there weren't many places to hide in the first place. She took her fan and used ninpu, Kameidachi no Jutsu, to cover the arena with cutting winds that even left traces in the walls. Shikamaru just stayed hidden even though one of the winds had cut into his upper arm, making blood flow. The wound wasn't that big, so he would be fine, he mused. When the winds calmed down, Tamari was breathing a little harder. She had used a little too much chakra in that last attack. While catching her breath she prepared herself for the next attack. She wondered what her opponent was planning. She didn't have to wait long as several shuriken and kunai came straight at her, but like before she just blasted them away with her fan. Again the same attack. I won't work, I told you already. She shouted. She saw that the distance between her and Shikamaru was too big for him to use his Kujimane no Jutsu. But just then a shadow shot out from behind a tree. The shadow continued towards her, so she jumped back just to be sure it couldn't reach her. But to her surprise the shadow reached further than she expected and she narrowly escaped. She jumped to her right and the shadow seemed to follow her for a while before retreating. She calmed down before looking at her opponent. I see, while we were talking the sun sank, making the shadow longer, giving you more range. Not a bad tactic, too bad it didn't work. She said while planting her fan in front of her. Kujimane no Jutsu. Success. Shikamaru just said, and before Tamari could ask him what he meant she felt herself getting caught by his shadow. What? How? Tamari managed to say. I'll show you. Shikamaru said, turning his head, causing her to look behind her. Shocked she saw that he had trapped her by using the shadows of the kunai scattered around the arena. When I used those kunai and shuriken, it wasn't to try and hit you. It was to use their shadows later on. During the preliminaries I noticed how you defeated 10-10 easily, so there was no way I would make that mistake. However, I knew it would be impossible for me to catch you since you two saw my technique that time. So I formed a plan to catch you off guard. You mean that all your attacks were only distractions? Tamari asked, bewildered. That's right. Using the shadows from the kunai was my plan from the beginning, but to use them I had to wait for you to step close enough to them. I used the last attack to distract you from my second shadow who was slowly closing into you. Shikamaru said while stepping close to her, and due to the Kujimane no Jutsu Tamari too stepped forward. Unfortunately for me, that last attack took my last bit of chakra. He slowly raised his hand and looked towards Genma. I forfeit. He said, shocking almost everybody in the stadium. At the same time his shadow let go of Tamari, freeing her. Why did you forfeit? You had me at your mercy. Tamari said, not believing the guy in front of her. Like I said, my chakra is almost gone and I don't have enough for another attack. I had hoped that my chakra reserves had grown enough during this month of training, but it seemed that was a bit too optimistic. He shrugged before turning and walking towards the stairs. Winner, Sabaku no Tamari. Genma exclaimed. The crowd cheered loudly. They thought that after the first two matches none of the next matches would be able to compare, but they had been treated to a tactical match. The rest of the Genin too were surprised at Shikamaru's performance, knowing that although he was very smart he was even lazier. Ino however was surprised the most, and she was waiting to grill him on the words that he had said during the match. Okay, you have some explaining to do, Mr. Asuma-sensei told us that you trained really hard for this match, what gives? Ino said as soon as Shikamaru arrived. Troublesome women always on my case. Shikamaru muttered quietly. I trained so that I wouldn't get left behind. I mean, if Naruto, who was the dead last in the academy, can become so strong in only a year, then maybe I too could get strong enough to protect my village and family. Naruto told me that during his training he realized that being a shinobi isn't just fun and games, but that you risk your life on every mission. My dream was to become an average shinobi and retire when my kids were old enough to get married, but now I know that if I'm not strong enough, I will never live to see that day. He explained. Wow, that was pretty deep even for you, Shikamaru. Ino said, astonished at his words. Whatever, explaining it otherwise would be too troublesome. Shikamaru shrugged before he put a soldier pill in his mouth to replenish his chakra reservoirs. The rest of the genin just smiled at Shikamaru, somewhat relieved that the lazy shinobi hadn't changed too much, and even the Junin gathered there were smiling at Shikamaru's and Ino's interaction. Naruto remembered what he had said to his friend at the preliminaries, and he was glad that his words had a positive influence. The only one who seemed unimpressed or interested was Sasuke. He was staring at the genins with a scowl on his face. Idiots, the whole bunch of them. So what if Naruto got stronger? He is still inferior to me and there's no way I'll lose to the dead last. Sasuke thought, although he was intrigued by that last jutsu Naruto had used. Down at the arena, Genma was getting ready for the next match. He turned toward the Hokage and nodded, indicating that he would start the next match. He took a stand and raised his hand, calling for silence before calling out both Shino and Kiba, who were anxious to fight. They had trained very hard for this match, knowing that they would need every advantage they could get. All right, let's go, Akamaru. Kiba said before jumping down to the arena. Shino however slowly made his way down using the stairs. Tough nobody could see it, he was slightly trembling from anticipation. This promised to be a good fight. He and Kiba had taken a friendly rivalry with each other, pushing them to get stronger every time. They knew that Naruto was stronger than them, but between Kiba and Shino the difference was very small, changing every once in a while. Naruto was cheering loudly for his teammates. Of course he couldn't take sides, so he just cheered for a good match. Kurenai and Anko too were cheering for their students. They knew that this match would be exciting even if they hadn't trained with them over the last month. The other genin were just cheering them both on, since they all had become friends of sort thanks to the time they had spent together. Genma looked at the two genin who were staring at each other. He could feel the excitement in both of them. Just as he was about to start the match, Kiba spoke. Shino, I won't go easy on you just because you're my friend and teammate. I trained very hard for this match and I'm not going to lose. He said, smiling. Likewise, Kiba, may the best man win. He said before sticking out his hand. Kiba just grabbed it and shook hands with his fellow genin. Genma smiled and raised his hands to start the match and dropped them. As soon as his hand came down, both genin jumped backwards to prepare for the first attack. Kiba and Akamaru were standing side by side preparing to attack first while Shino just stood there waiting. Kiba was about to attack when all of a sudden Genma jumped between them yelling for them to stop. What's going on? Why did you stop the match? Kiba asked confused. Look around you, the whole stadium is under a genjutsu. We're under attack. Genma shouted as few dozen foreign shinobi entered the stadium. The shinobi were wearing Suna and Odo headbands and were starting to engage the leaf shinobi who didn't fall under the genjutsu. Get back to your Junin sensei and get your orders. The exam is now cancelled. This is war. Go. Genma said while throwing several senbon at the attacking shinobi. Kiba and Shino didn't need to be told twice and hurried up to the balcony. When they arrived, the Junin senseis were already fighting some Odo shinobi. Anko quickly called every genin towards her and issued orders. Sasuke however refused to listen and started to look for a shinobi he could fight. No way was he going to leave this place to hide like those other cowards. Anko shrugged, thinking Naruto and the rest would be better off without the Uchiha anyway. She could always punish him later for disobeying a direct order, which made a small grin appear on her face. All right, listen up. We'll take care of the stadium. You guys help wherever you can, okay? Take down everyone that attacks Konoha, but stay together. Don't try to be a hero. Konoha shinobi work together to get the job done. My final order is that you survive, do you hear me? Do not get yourself killed. She said, looking directly at Naruto and the genin. Then she just grabbed Naruto by the collar and kissed him in front of everybody. Especially you. After that she went to help her fellow Junin in fighting. Ahem, well, let's get to work. If you were an attacking shinobi, where would you strike first? Come on people, we don't have lots of time. Naruto said, taking control. The hospital is my guess. The Hokage Tower. Lots of things there that could be a target. Shikamaru said. The academy. Take out future shinobi. Shino said calmly. Good thinking. Alright, let's split up. Hinata and Sakura, you two come with me. We'll go and secure the academy and take out every enemy on the way. Naruto said, earning nods for the two girls. Ino, Choji and I will take the hospital. Shikamaru said while looking at his teammates who agreed. Shino, Neji, Tenten and I will take the Hokage Tower. Kiba said while standing up. He didn't really like Neji, but this wasn't the time for petty arguments, and even Neji seemed to realize that. The genins nodded at each other and gathered before leaving the stadium, each to their target. Naruto, Hinata and Sakura were jumping across Konoha using the rooftops to get to the academy. They could hear the alarm that sounded throughout Konoha, alerting the village of an enemy attack. Thanks to Anko and Kurenai, Naruto and Team 8 knew that several precautions had been taken to evacuate the civilians, but they were still worried about the innocent people. Suddenly Naruto heard a scream, and when he looked down he saw several people cornered by Odo shinobi. He changed direction and put his hand on his sword, already unsheathing it halfway while descending on the Odo shinobi. Hinata and Sakura too were taking out some kunai and shuriken to defend the villagers. Well, what do we have here? What do you think, boys? Maybe we could have some fun. One of the shinobi said, advancing to one of the girls. But before he could reach her he felt an enormous pain. Looking down he saw that a sword was sticking out of his chest before dropping down dead. Naruto turned around while throwing a few of his disposable knives, hitting two other shinobi in the head, killing them instantly. Before any of the remaining shinobi could react, they too received a kunai in the head courtesy of Hinata and Sakura. Thanking them, Naruto went over to the civilians hoping that he would be able to calm them down. It's okay, we're from Konoha. We won't let you get hurt. Why aren't you with the evacuation group? Naruto asked. We were separated from the group during the chaos. We tried to make it to the shelters but we were cornered by them. One of the civilians said, not believing that Naruto of all people had saved them. Even though he didn't really hate Naruto, he wasn't friendly either to the boy. All right, we'll help you get there. Naruto said before making several kage bunshin, one for each civilian. These clones will take you to the shelters and protect you from attacks. Each clone quickly grabbed a person and disappeared as fast as they could. Naruto just nodded and the three of them continued their way to the academy. While this was going on, Iruka was getting nervous. He heard the alarms and he and the other teachers quickly gathered the students. They didn't have much time. Iruka knew that the academy would be a prime target for attack, so they had to hurry. Hoping that all the students were gathered, they quickly made their way outside. It was important that the kids didn't panic, so they told them it was just an exercise, but he could hear the sounds of battle quite clearly. Just as they left the academy, a large explosion threw almost everybody on the ground and made several of the younger students cry in fear and panic. Iruka quickly grabbed one of the youngest students and his fellow teachers did the same. They couldn't blame the children after all, they weren't trained for this kind of battle yet. Unfortunately, it seemed that his fears came true as he saw several enemy shinobi waiting for them. He put the child back down and slowly stepped forward. Please do not hurt the children, they're innocent. Kill us if you have to, but leave them alone. Iruka said, hoping they would listen. Man, Konoha shinobi sure are stupid. We were ordered to dispose of any future shinobi, so no deal. The shinobi in front said, taking out a kunai and advancing at Iruka. The Chunin was in serious trouble and he knew it. There was no way he could fight this shinobi and protect his students. The rest of the teachers were also getting ready to fight for their students, but they were outnumbered. Just as Iruka was going to attack, a loud voice was heard. A voice that brought him hope and strength like none other before. He yelled at the kids to close their eyes and not to open them before he said so. He didn't want them to see what would happen next. Tengoku Seiden Kei's no Jutsu. The enemy shinobi who was advancing at Iruka didn't know what was happening, but just then he felt an attack hit him right in the chest, stopping him. His fellow shinobi watched as the attack hit their leader, almost killing him instantly. The attack had hit him right in the heart and almost cut him in pieces. They instantly became alert and before them arrived 3 Konoha shinobi, a boy and 2 girls. They stared at them before becoming enraged that they had killed their leader. Iruka-sensei, what are you waiting for? Get out of here, we'll take care of these guys. Naruto yelled loudly. Iruka, who was shocked at Naruto's attack, just nodded before he and his fellow teachers grabbed the kids and started running for the shelter. As if we would let you leave here alive. One of the shinobi said before starting their attack. Naruto just raised his sword and attacked as well. A quick cage bunshin and the fight started with Naruto stabbing the first shinobi in the gut. Hinata and Sakura opted to work together and joined Naruto in defending the academy and making sure the kids got away safely. Sakura, who had helped with Hinata's training, had learned a lot during their time together. She still was miles behind her new friend, but now she could hold her own, and it seemed that a lot of the Oto shinobi were either genin or low chunin, so she and Hinata were faring very well against their opponent. Naruto and his cage bunshins dealt fairly quick with his opponents. He too felt that these guys were big in number, but most of them were either weak genin or low chunin. Still, he didn't take any chances and showed no mercy towards them. They tried to destroy the village he loved, and by doing so they endangered his precious people as well, and for that they would pay. He jumped back and used one of his favorite jutsu, Kaden, Nenchaku Bakuhatsu Hotaru no Jutsu, making several dozens of fireflies that attached themselves to his enemies, and with a simple motion of his fingers they exploded, killing them painfully. Hinata and Sakura had been fighting very well, and while Sakura wasn't as strong as she could have been, she distracted them enough so that Hinata could deliver the final blow by hitting them in the heart with a Juken-powered blow. When the last of the enemies fell, the 3 of them calmed down a little and relaxed a bit. They took a deep breath and muttered a prayer for the fallen enemies that they had killed. For Sakura, this was the first time she had to kill, so she was a bit under the weather. All right, good job. Sakura, don't worry about it now. Talk to us after this is over, we'll help you get over this. For now, let's go help the others. Naruto said while putting a hand on Sakura's shoulder. She nodded and followed Hinata and Naruto, who were already leaving. Shikamaru was not having a good time, as they had suspected the hospital was targeted for destruction, and while he and his team were holding on for now, they wouldn't be able to defeat the large number of enemy shinobi. He looked towards Ino and Choji and saw that they too were getting tired and out of chakra. When they arrived, 2 Chunin had been holding the enemy back, but one of them got killed by a kunai to the head and the other was hurt badly by a Kaden jutsu. They needed help and fast, otherwise they wouldn't come out of this battle alive. He ducked another attack before striking his attacker with a kunai in the left temple, killing him instantly. He winced at the thought of killing, but like Naruto had said, being a shinobi isn't all fun and games. Ino had taken control of one enemy who was now attacking his comrade with a kunai, hoping that she could get him off guard. She plunged the kunai in the man's gut before transferring her mind back to her own body. The effect was instant, and when the other Oto nin saw him strike one of their own, they killed him, thinking he was a traitor. Another 3 down, yet still so many remain. This is bad, Shikamaru thought. No matter how much he thought, he couldn't see a way out of this fight. He could only hope that reinforcements would arrive soon before they got killed. Just then all of the remaining Oto nin advanced towards them, going in for the kill. Shikamaru sighed and looked at the clouds, thinking that this would be the last time he would see them. He then closed his eyes, waiting for the attack to hit. Surprisingly, it never came, and when he opened his eyes he saw that every nin was rooted to the ground. Well done, Team 10, the 3 of you make us very proud. We'll handle things from here on out. A familiar voice said from behind the Oto shinobi. Shikamaru couldn't believe his luck when he saw his dad looking at him full of pride and joy. Dad! Thank God you guys made it in time. Ino exclaimed when she too saw her dad before he started killing the shinobi that were caught in Shikaku's shadow. Okay, you 3, congratulations, we'll have to wait until after this is all over. For now let's take care of any remaining hostile shinobi. Inoichi said. Dad. Naruto, Sakura and Hinata are at the academy while Shino, Kiba, Tenten and Neji are defending the Hokage Tower. We should help them. Shikamaru called quickly. Not to worry, Shikamaru. Help is on the way. Our first priority was getting the villagers out of here. Now however we start fighting back, and Anbu is already on their way. Shikaku said calmly. Shikamaru and his teammate nodded, knowing that the Anbu were the best of the best and with their help things would be in their advantage again. Still they were worried about their friends who were fighting as well. But as they thought that Naruto, Hinata and Sakura arrived before them. Forehead girl, you're alive. Ino exclaimed, making Sakura angry. Of course I'm alive, Ino pig. I won't lose to you, not now, not ever. Sakura retorted, making everybody smile. The academy students are safe. We dealt with the enemies that tried to destroy the academy and kill the students. Naruto said to Shikamaru. Seems we guessed right when we said they would attack the academy and the hospital. Yeah, so the Hokage Tower should be under attack as well, we should help them out. Shikamaru said. No need for that, you two, there were several Anbu stationed at the tower, so things should be just fine there. But good thinking on your parts. Choji's dad said. Great, if that's the case I'm going back to the stadium to help out Anko-chan. Naruto before using Shunshin no Jutsu. Wait, Naruto. Sakura yelled after him. She had seen how Anko had kissed him and she was curious to know what was going on between them. Let him go, Sakura. There's no stopping him, he's worried about her even though she's one of the strongest kunoichi in Konoha. Hinata said, smiling. But what going on between them? You saw it too, right? She kissed him. And not just a peck on the cheek, I swear I saw some tongue. Sakura said, blushing, and Ino too started blushing as she remembered that kiss. Sorry Sakura, but I can't tell you about them. I promised not to tell anyone. Hinata said, not wanting to cause trouble for her two friends. Way to go, Naruto. Damn, how the hell did you get Anko to do that? Inoichi exclaimed loudly. Anko was known to be one of the most desired kunoichi in Konoha together with Kurenai and Yugao. Anko was known to flirt with guys, but never had she kissed one or allowed one to kiss her. The last one to try spent a long time recovering from her wrath. The 3 older men then started giggling with a perverted grin on their face, causing the 3 younger girls to hit them on the head. Naruto was now jumping from rooftop to rooftop on his way back to the stadium. He had already encountered one enemy nin but just cut him down with his sword, not really bothering to engage him fully into battle. Seeing the stadium, he sped up a little after he noticed a giant cube on top of a building right next to it. Arriving at his destination, he could see dozens of bodies lying around the arena. He looked around and saw Kakashi and Guy fighting some Suna shinobi to his right. Next he saw Kurenai using some genjutsu on a poor Oto nin, and judging from his screams she used one of her favorite genjutsu, one that showed your greatest fear. She quickly disposed of her opponent before engaging another fight. Naruto nodded, seeing that she would be fine, she wasn't a Junin for nothing. Suddenly he heard a loud scream, making him look behind him and saw Anko laughing and fighting like she had the greatest time in the world. Seeing that she was alright, he looked if any of them needed help, but then he remembered the cube and jumped to see what was happening on the roof. When he landed on the roof, he saw several anbu looking inside what seemed to be an enormous barrier of some sort. Intrigued, he too looked inside and saw Sandame fighting two opponents at the same time, and it seemed that he was having a very hard time with them. What the hell are you guys waiting for? Go help him. Naruto yelled at the anbu. Listen kid, we would if we could, but this barrier stops us from helping. As soon as you touch the barrier, you get that result. One of the anbu said while pointing at a body that seemed to be burned horribly. There has to be a way to get inside. Naruto said while watching his Jichin fight. Who are those guys anyway? That the Shadaime and Nadaime, kid. The anbu said, shocking Naruto. And the one controlling them is Orochimaru, one of the Sannin. Goddammit, there has to be something I can do. All right, think Naruto, think. Naruto thought. Let's see, it a barrier that's being held up by 4 Oto shinobi. According to the anbu, there's no weak point in the barrier, but that's bullshit. Every jutsu has a weak point. He said to himself while examining the barrier. In theory, the weak point should be in the place that's the farthest away from any point that supports it. What's the weakest point in a cube-like barrier? Of course, the middle point of the top. Okay, found the weak point. Now how do I penetrate that barrier without becoming crispy like that guy over there? Jutsu won't help, neither will my sword. The Rasengan. Yeah, that could work, but I would have to use my special version just to be sure. Naruto thought. All right, I have an idea, but I need your help. Naruto said, addressing the anbu. Get real kid, there's no way you can get inside if we couldn't. One of the anbu said, sneering at him. Look, either you help me and it works, or you can sit here and look how Sandame gets killed. Naruto exclaimed. The anbu looked at each other and nodded. They might as well try since the kid seemed sure. Fine, what do you want us to do? Said the anbu captain. I need one of you guys to throw me as high as you can up into the air and I will take care of the rest. Naruto said, happy that they decided to help. No problem, but for your sake I hope you know what you're doing. Otherwise you're as good as dead. The man said. Huh, I'm Uzumaki Naruto and I won't die until I become the next Hokage, you can count on that. Let's get this show on the run. Naruto said with a foxy grin on his face, sticking out his hands so the anbu could grab hold of them. The anbu nodded and took both of Naruto's hands in his and held them tightly before he started to swing around to gather strength in his throw. Once he felt that he was going fast enough, he threw Naruto as far and high as he possibly could before looking up. Naruto flew upward a little dizzy from the turning around, but he quickly got over it and looked down as he started to fall. He quickly made a cage bunshin and grabbed onto it by holding their left hands. Together they put their right hands in front of them just next to each other and they started to gather their chakra. Halfway the fall, a large Rasengan appeared about 10 times the size it normally was. Naruto and his clone aimed for the point straight in the middle of the top of the barrier before slamming the Rasengan into it. Udama Rasengan. Sandame had enjoyed Shikamaru's match very much. It showed an impressive talent in strategic and tactical thinking, which was something he respected very much. Shikamaru had proven that even when he was fighting with a severe handicap, he could come out on top, and even when he had forfeited the match, Sandame deemed it more enough. Sometimes a shinobi had to run so he could fight another day instead of trying to do the impossible, and that was something not a lot of shinobi understood. He looked towards the balcony where the young genin were gathered and smiled when he saw the poor boy being questioned by his teammate. He knew of the Yamanaka temper, so he quietly wished the boy good luck. When he saw that Genma was ready to start the next match, he nodded and smiled. This time it would be 2 of Naruto's teammates who would be facing off, and he wondered how much they had progressed. If Naruto's own progress was anything to go by, this would be a very good match. He would have to remember to congratulate both Anko and Kurenai for doing such an excellent job in training their students. He saw that both teammates were shaking hands and this pleased him. A bit of rivalry never hurt anybody as long as it stay healthy and friendly, but it seemed that he didn't have to worry about Kiba and Shino in that department. Just as the match was about to start, a massive genjutsu made most of the people, expect the more experienced shinobi and genin, fall asleep, and he felt someone grabbing him around his neck. He was then transported to the nearby roof and suddenly 4 Oto shinobi appeared and started doing hand seals. When they finished, a large barrier surrounded them, making it impossible for someone to get through. Cage same, what are you doing? Please stop this, we can do this another way. Sandame said, hoping he would get his fellow shinobi to see the error in his ways. He then saw dozens of shinobi enter the stadium and hoped that his own shinobi would be able to stop them from massacring his village. Kuku, I'm afraid that will be impossible, Sarutobi-sensei. A very familiar voice rang into Sandame's ear. Orochimaru. So this is all you're doing. Why are you here? Sandame said, even though he knew exactly what was going on. I'm here to see the defeat of Konoha. Orochimaru said, smirking while disposing of the cage clothes he was wearing, revealing a sound uniform. You should know better than anyone that Konoha will not be destroyed that easily. And neither will I for that matter. Sandame said while he took the Hokage clothes off as well, which hid his old battle uniform. I see you're still wearing that old battle uniform from your old days. Nostalgic, isn't it? Orochimaru said while retreating a bit. I should have never taught you, Orochimaru. I was blinded by your talent and didn't see the person you truly were. But I'm going to correct that mistake even if it costs me my life. Sandame said while taking a stance ready to start the battle. You shouldn't force yourself, sensei. After all, you're not so young anymore. Orochimaru said calmly. I taught you not to underestimate your opponents and you should know that better than anyone. I'm called the professor for a reason. Sandame said. Yes, you did teach me that, but you see, while you got older, I on the other hand only got younger. Orochimaru said while putting his hand on his cheek. He then pulled on his skin, causing it to come off, and revealed a young-looking person. You monster. You completed that jutsu, didn't you? Sandame asked, shocked. He knew Orochimaru had been experimenting on humans to discover a way to gain immortality. That was one of the reasons he was so disappointed in his former pupils, since he tortured and experimented on people from Konoha as well. That's right, I found a way to eternal life. While you and everyone else ages and eventually dies, I will live on and master every jutsu in the known world, becoming the greatest shinobi ever lived. Orochimaru said while laughing softly. I see you still don't understand what it takes to be a true shinobi. I said it before the finals started, don't you remember? It's not the number of jutsu you know that makes you a shinobi. One becomes truly strong when he defends and fights for the village and people he loves. Sandame said, shaking his head. Still sprouting that nonsense, you old monkey. You haven't changed a bit and I find it revolting. Change is necessary in this world and things will start with your death. Orochimaru snickered. Even if I'm defeated today, Konoha will never be destroyed. The will of fire will not be extinguished by such a pitiful wind. Sandame said while thinking of the young genins that he had witnessed fighting today. He had seen how strong they were and he had no doubt that they would protect Konoha to the best of their abilities. Orochimaru had been growing tired of talking, and frankly whatever Sandame said was pure nonsense in his eyes. The old man was growing senile in his opinion and it was time to start fighting instead of talking. He slowly raised his hands and a grin appeared on his face. He could already imagine the shock on the old man's face when he would use the next jutsu. Sandame, however, wasn't about to let Orochimaru attack without retaliating, and he too started to make hand seals at an astonishing speed. Orochimaru finished first and put his hands together in a special seal and said, Kuchio's no jutsu, Edo Tensai, before a coffin with the kanji for 1 appeared out of the ground. Not a second later, a second coffin with the number 2 joined the first one. Orochimaru was ecstatic and continued hoping the next coffin would appear as well. Sarutobi, who had recognized the jutsu after the first coffin appeared, yelled out, Kage Shuriken Bunshin no Jutsu, hoping to stop Orochimaru from summoning the next coffin. Unfortunately, he was too late to prevent the second coffin, but he had managed to stop the last one. Of all the jutsu in world, he had to use that one. This will be harder than I thought. Sandame mused. Orochimaru was somewhat disappointed that the last coffin didn't work, but in the end it didn't matter. These two would be more than enough to deal with the old monkey. The coffins opened, revealing 2 shinobi, and before Sandame could stop him, Orochimaru planted a kunai with a seal inside the skulls of the shinobi. A second later they opened their eyes and looked straight at Sarutobi. It's been a while since we've seen each other, hasn't it, young Sarutobi? The man who came out of the first coffin said. Indeed it has Shadaim-sama, Nadaim-sama. Sandaime said, acknowledging the two men in front of him. He felt a small tear form in his eyes from seeing his two senseis again. These were the men who had taught him what it meant to be a shinobi of Konoha. They had been the ones who inspired him to become Hokage and protect this village and its inhabitants to his fullest potential. It seems that we are on opposite sides today, young one. A chance to see how much you have grown over the years. Nadaime said, looking at his former student. Alright, enough talking already. You can get nostalgic after you guys meet in the afterlife. Orochimaru said, ordering them to attack Sandaime. Seeing that they were controlled by him, the two former Hokages didn't have a choice and started attacking. The Sandaime's face grew hard and he too got ready to attack or defend. Sandaime had been fighting for over half an hour now and he was getting tired. He was in his 60s and he didn't have the same abilities like he did in his prime. After summoning Enma, which had taken a reasonable amount of chakra, the fight had been going better, but using his staff he noticed that he started to have problems to keep up. He had to admit that Orochimaru was an formidable opponent. Supplying enough chakra to allow the Shadaime and Nadaime to use their trademark jutsus would mean that he became very strong. Sandaime was trying to come up with a plan to deal with this difficult situation, but no matter how much he racked his brain, nothing seemed to come up. At this rate he would be defeated and Orochimaru would have succeeded in at least one of his goals and Sandaime would be damned if he gave him the satisfaction. He was preparing for another attack when he suddenly heard a familiar voice above of him. All four men looked up and saw a huge ball of chakra impact on the barrier, and Sandaime looked surprised as he had seen what happened to the Anbu who had tried to get through the barrier. He wondered what had possessed Naruto to risk his life to try to get inside. Orochimaru too looked surprised at Naruto's actions but figured that he would just fail in his attempt to break through it. To his amazement he saw that slowly but surely the barrier seemed to give way to the attack, opening a hole. Just then the ball of chakra exploded and opened a hole large enough for several people to fit through, and not half a second later a blonde shinobi crashed on the roof right between Sandaime and his attackers. The barrier however closed again before anyone else could get in or out. Wow, it worked. Have to work on the landing though. Naruto said loudly, commenting on his attack. Naruto. What was that? How did you get inside the barrier? Sandaime said, shocked. Of course it's me, like I would sit still while you were in trouble. And that was my Udama Rasengan, a modification I made on the normal Rasengan. Naruto said while taking his stance alongside his adoptive grandfather. Are you insane? There's no way you can compete with a Sannin and two former Hokages. Sandaime yelled at him. I know that, and I'm not here to defeat them, I'm here to help you. I'll distract them and you finish them before they finish us. Isn't that how Konoha shinobi work? Teamwork. Naruto said, frowning. He knew better than anyone else what his level was and that there was no way he could defeat such strong opponents. Besides, didn't you make a promise to a certain someone to be there at her wedding? Kuku. Naruto-kun, I congratulate you for getting inside, but that was a foolish thing to do. Now I'll have to dispose of you as well. A genin like yourself has no chance of coming out of this fight alive. Orochimaru said while grinning crazy. You're Orochimaru, huh? I promised a very special person that I wouldn't seek you out to kick your ass. But I did promise that I would protect everyone from you if I ever had the misfortune of meeting you. Naruto said calmly. Orochimaru, while outwardly unfazed, was getting irritated by this blonde shinobi. First he defeated Gaara, ruining that part of his plan to destroy Konoha, and now he managed to get inside a barrier that he thought was impossible to break into, joining the old man in the fight. While he was sure Naruto wouldn't be that much trouble, he had a bad feeling about this and he was going to finish this as soon as possible. Naruto, we need to destroy the seal inside their heads, that's the only way that their souls can once again ascend to the heavens. Sandaime said quickly, hoping that with Naruto's help he would be able to free his former teachers from Orochimaru. Even if we destroy their bodies they'll regenerate. Got it. I suppose Snake Face over there is supplying them with the necessary chakra. Naruto said, looking at Sandaime, who nodded. He's been giving them chakra for a while now, so hopefully he'll be running out soon enough. Despite the situation being serious, Sandaime couldn't help but let a chuckle escape when he heard Naruto insulting Orochimaru. Only Naruto would have the guts to insult one of the strongest shinobi in the lands without worrying about what could happen. Yeah, but we can't count on that since he is a Sannin. We'll have to take them down first and after that we can worry about Snake Face. He said using Naruto's insult making Orochimaru sneer at them. Naruto nodded and took a deep breath. He would be facing two former Hokages and he would need to concentrate and attack carefully. He couldn't afford any mistake as that would get him killed for sure, which would make Anko resurrect him only to kill him again, he was sure of that. She could be a real handful if she got mad at him. Luckily that only happened once in a while but still, no need to get careless. He took a stance and prepared to attack. Sandaime too got ready and he grabbed the staff beside him with both arms. Alright, let's get this show on a run. I have some things planned for tonight. Naruto said while making several Kage Bunshin who surrounded both of them. Orochimaru was getting slightly angered at the blonde behavior. Here was a genin who was facing two former Hokages and a Sannin and he was acting like this was everyday business to him. At first he found the young genin amusing but that had quickly passed with the name calling and insults. The problem was that the blonde Gaki was right about him supplying the necessary chakra for the Shadaime and the Nadaime. Supplying them both with chakra ate away his reserves and he guessed that he would only have enough for another half hour of fighting. Not only that but he was getting tired just like the kid said. He had expected to kill of the Sandaime quickly and then make his way out of the village letting his subordinates take care of the rest. He had underestimated the old man, thinking that his old age would make him weaker, which was true to a certain extent, but he hadn't taken his experience into consideration. He used that jutsu in the hope that the old fool would be emotional distressed by seeing them again, but it seemed he was wrong. Seeing that they were waiting for him to attack, Naruto was only happy to oblige and started by sending several Kage Bunshin towards the Shadaime. They didn't get far however as they were destroyed by a tree root that grew out of the ground. However, Naruto had used the resulting smoke created by the Bunshin being destroyed to hide his next attack. He quickly summoned several of his throwing knives and aimed for the Shadaime. Of course the Shadaime wasn't a Hokage for nothing and saw the attack coming and used his Mokuden Jutsu to raise a shield to protect him from the knives. To his surprise the knives just went straight through his shield embedding into his chest. Naruto wasn't finished however and made a hand seal which made the exploding tags he had put around the knives explode. Satisfied that the Shadaime was temporarily taken care of, Naruto focused on the fight between the Sandaime and the Nadaime. Sarutobi had seen that Naruto engaged Shadaime and started his own attack. His staff was very special since it was as hard as diamond and could deliver some serious damage. He could also change its length at will, making it possible to do both a close range and mid-range attack. He knew how his former teacher fought and even if Orochimaru was the one to supply the chakra, that wouldn't change, so he had an advantage and he would use to its fullest possibilities. Sandaime took his staff and started attacking, striking from any angle possible making the Nadaime retreat backwards. Soon Sandaime was breathing heavily. These attacks were wearing on his stamina and if he kept this up he wouldn't last much longer. The Nadaime noticed this as well and prepared an attack aimed at the old Hokage. Sandaime recognized the hand seals and cursed. This was one of the strongest Suiden Jutsu called Suiruden no Jutsu. When the water dragon was about to hit him, two of Naruto's Kage Bunshins grabbed the Sandaime and jumped out of the way. He nodded before once again attacking with the help of the Bunshins. Naruto was watching how the Shadaime who had reformed his body and marveled at how he made several Bunshin made out of wood. This was the man who had founded Konoha and had created the woods around the village, and Naruto felt a shiver of anticipation run through his body. He made no disillusions. He knew that he had no chance of winning against this man had he been fighting the real deal, but seeing as Orochimaru was supplying both of them with chakra, he couldn't waste any chakra with flashy techniques. Naruto grabbed his sword and channeled some chakra into the seal. He still had several Bunshin left, so he wasted no time and attacked. Kage Bunshin met Moku Bunshin, and even though the Moku Bunshin had the stronger body, Naruto's Bunshin were equipped with a sword that could cut through virtually anything. While the clones were facing each other, Naruto used one of his favorite Kenjutsu techniques, Tenjou Kei's Seiden no Jutsu, only to have it impact on a thick wooden shield, cutting it almost all the way through. Shadaime just grew several branches and ordered them to attack Naruto, who had a hard time evading and cutting through them. Naruto raised his sword to use another technique, but a branch slammed into his chest sending him across the area. When he crashed, Naruto coughed up some blood before standing up again. Wow, that hurt. A lot. Can't receive much of those, or not even my fast healing will be able to keep me alive. Naruto thought. Those branches are just as bad as Gaara's sand, he can control them at will, making it almost impossible to get close. Naruto sheathed his sword and summoned something that resembled the handle of a sword but without the blade that he had stored in his holster. He had come up with an idea to attack from a distance, but this would be the first he used that jutsu in a real combat. He put the handle into his mouth and started to make some seals before he said, Kaden, Kanmushi no Jutsu, before breathing out a long thin thread of fire that seemed to be attached to the handle. Grabbing the handle from his mouth, he brought the whip made of fire down onto the wood of the branch he was standing on, making a long gash which burnt for a few moments. The whip would remain as long as he channeled chakra into the handle, just like his sword, and was capable of burning almost anything. Unfortunately, this attack took way more chakra than his sword did, so he was taking a gamble. Making several Kage Bunshin, each with their own whip, he started his attack and he slashed his whip around before bringing it down, aimed at the Shadaime. Several branches shot out of the ground and stopped the whip from hitting him in the face. After stopping the whip, the branches shot at Naruto, but before they could reach him, his clones grabbed onto the branches with their whips and pulled them out of Naruto's way, giving him a free path straight to the Shadaime. Two other clones got closer and ensnared the Shadaime's arms with their whip, holding him in place. Naruto, seeing an opportunity, dropped his whip and quickly made some hand seals and yelled out, Kaden, Kanya no Jutsu, making several arrows of fire shooting out of his mouth at an enormous speed, hitting the Shadaime straight into his head, destroying it at the same time, as well as the seal embedded into his skull. Surprised that his attack worked, he saw how the body crumpled, revealing a corpse that Naruto recognized as one of the sound genin, indicating that the Shadaime's soul had been released from Orochimaru's jutsu. He was breathing heavily since maintaining several Kage Bunshin with a Kanmushi took quite some chakra, but he figured he would be fine in a few minutes to go help his Jichin fighting. Orochimaru was seething. That blonde took out the Shadaime. While it was true that this Shadaime wasn't fighting to the fullest of his capacities, maybe not even at the half of his strength, and that the chakra he was able to supply was anything but extraordinary, this was still an incredible strong opponent to defeat. He once again underestimated his enemy. He had wanted to save some chakra and had deemed that the Nadaime needed more chakra since he was fighting the old man. Therefore he had only given the Shadaime the bare minimum of chakra, just enough to do several jutsu and use the wood element, thinking that would be more than enough to deal with the genin. The Shadaime was just above Junin level when that obnoxious brat defeated him. He was regretting that now, he should have dealt with him first and then focus on the old man. Still, he had the Nadaime who seemed to be having the upper hand in the fight, and hopefully that would be enough to dispose of those two pests. Sandaime had not been faring well since several minutes. He was exhausted and his arms were heavy from carrying the staff and using it to attack. So far he hadn't been able to deal a finishing blow, though he had taken several hits himself. The regeneration of the Nadaime was a serious thorn in his side and he wondered if he would get out of this battle alive. But there was no way he would give up now. He had to protect the village, so as long as his body didn't break down he would fight just like he did during the wars he had fought. Naruto's Kage Bunshins had long been destroyed and he lacked the necessary chakra to make his own. He cursed as his knees hit the ground, showing him just how tired he was. He tried to get up but his body refused to move, and when he saw one of the Nadaime's water dragons coming his way he closed his eyes waiting for the attack to hit. Futon. Kamikaze no Jutsu. When he heard Naruto's voice from before him, he opened his eyes and saw how Naruto and himself were surrounded by a barrier made out of wind. The barrier literally created an upwards wind protecting them. Not only that, but it seemed that the winds cut everything around them and even the water dragon didn't survive the onslaught. The Nadaime and Orochimaru were forced to evade several of the cutting winds lest they wanted to be cut into pieces by it. When the winds disappeared, the Sandaime Hokage was shocked to see the destruction the jutsu had made. Inside the barrier made by the sound shinobi, almost everything had traces of being cut by the winds. The only place that hadn't taken any damage was inside the wind barrier where Naruto and himself had been. Naruto, what the hell was that jutsu? Sandaime asked at his partner. That was one of my strongest jutsu. It's called Kamikaze no Jutsu, and it destroys everything around it while protecting those inside. Naruto said while falling to one knee from exhaustion. Too bad it takes so much chakra to use it though. I probably won't be able to use it anymore. Divine winds. It sure looks like it's a punishment from the gods. The damage is enormous. Sandaime said, still shocked at the results of Naruto's jutsu. He wondered how Naruto came up with all these jutsu. He truly had a gift at making new jutsu that was sure. In the meanwhile, Orochimaru was catching his breath. That jutsu had surprised him, and he had even panicked a little when he felt several of those winds pass him at great speeds. He was sure that he would have been seriously hurt if he had gotten hit. Where the hell did he learn a jutsu like that? He asked himself. Kabuto told him that he was known for making his own jutsu, but he thought that they would be useless jutsu only of use to a genin. Never had he imagined the kid to make such devastating and powerful jutsu like that. He would have to get rid of the kid before he got too strong. If he let him live, he would become a danger to his future plans, and that was something he couldn't allow. Goddammit, I should have dealt with him straight from the beginning. Soon I'll be out of chakra to supply the Nadaime, and facing the two of them would prove to be dangerous. Orochimaru thought. This resurrection jutsu has more disadvantages than I originally thought. Not being able to attack myself was a huge miscalculation. Naruto stood up after resting a bit, profiting of the fact that Orochimaru seemed to be in deep thoughts. He had spent a lot of chakra defeating the Shadaime using that last jutsu. He knew, however, that the Sandaime was even worse off than he was, judging from the heavy breathing he was doing. They would have to defeat the Nadaime quickly and hope that Orochimaru was too tired to fight the both of them. He pulled out a soldier pill out of his pouch and quickly ate it, restoring some of his chakra. He would have given one to Sandaime, but he knew that the old man's body wouldn't be able to take it. The soldier pill was a special pill that returned some of the lost chakra and energy, but it also put a heavy strain on the body. That's why you couldn't take soldier pills too soon after another. Jichin, I'll distract him and drive him towards you. When you see an opening, don't hesitate and finish it. Naruto whispered. Just rest for now and gather some strength, okay? Sandaime nodded, though he was kind of mad that he was the one who needed to be protected, but there was nothing he could do about that right now. He would have to swallow his pride and wait for the perfect time to strike. Naruto was a little worried. The pill he had taken restored some chakra, but it wasn't nearly enough to his taste. He would have to save some of it for afterwards, but right now he had to deal with the Nadaime in front of him. He made several kage bunshin and ordered them to protect the Sandaime while he rested. He took out his sword again and jumped forward to attack, slashing at his opponent. The Nadaime evaded the attacks with relative ease and started to push Naruto back with his own attacks. They matched each other blow for blow, but it seemed like Naruto was losing the exchange and Sandaime tried to get up. Before he could get up, however, a kage bunshin put his hand on his shoulders while shaking his head. Sandaime nodded and sat back down. Is this part of your plan, Naruto? What are you aiming for? Sandaime thought while focusing on the fight. Naruto was slowly moving in Orochimaru's line of sight. As long as Orochimaru could see them, he could warn the Nadaime of an attack from Sandaime, and that was exactly what he didn't want. By guiding himself directly in front of Orochimaru, he would take care of that. He had someone in mind to help him with his plan, but he needed to be patient. Not an easy thing when one of the strongest shinobi ever was attacking you with the intent to kill you. He signaled one of his clones to get ready and to inform the Sandaime of his plan. Jichin, when Naruto distracts them, he wants you to ask Enma to grab the Nadaime and hold him so you can destroy the seal inside. The clone whispered. Sandaime nodded slightly, showing he understood even if he didn't know what distraction Naruto was going to use. Naruto had finally reached his desired location and he dropped his sword quickly after running his thumb across the blade, making it bleed. He then did several seals before slamming his hand into the ground and yelled, Kuchio's no jutsu. A huge cloud appeared and a large toad came out of it, blocking everything from Orochimaru's sight. Naruto hoped the attack worked, since this had cost him almost all of his remaining chakra. Sandaime leapt into action with Enma grabbing Nadaime by surprise. He took out one of the knives Naruto had made for him and stabbed it into the Nadaime's skull, destroying the seal. The Nadaime's body crumpled before his eyes, and Sarutobi quickly apologized to his one-time teacher before turning towards Naruto. Orochimaru couldn't believe what just happened. He had been played by a mere genin. No seeing anything because of the large toad in front of him, he felt his control on the Nadaime disappear and knew he was defeated. This meant that he would be fighting them 2-1. Sure, they may be a old man and a genin who were tired and exhausted after fighting such formidable opponent, but he too was almost out of chakra. His plan to kill his old sensei and destroy this pathetic village had not gone the way he had imagined it. He turned towards the two Konoha shinobi when he heard the Sandame's voice calling him. Orochimaru, your plan has failed. Give it up, you can't win. It's over. Sandame yelled loudly. Shut up, old man. This isn't over yet. Orochimaru exclaimed before he opened his mouth and a sword appeared. This was the legendary Kusanagi sword and it was one of the strongest swords ever made. Orochimaru grabbed it and rushed over towards the old Hokage intending to strike him right in the heart. The Sandame however was incapable of moving from exhaustion and could only watch as his death came running towards him. Naruto however wouldn't let Orochimaru take one of his precious people away from him, so with his last strength he jumped in front of the Sandame and took the hit in his place. He cried out in pain when he felt the blade pierce his right side, narrowly missing a vital spot. Orochimaru, who didn't suspect that the kid would take the blow, could only smirk at the sight. Sure, he wanted to deal with the old man first, but this was just as good. He started laughing but stopped quickly when Naruto grabbed his arms with so much strength that he couldn't break free. He looked at Naruto and saw that he was smiling. Hey snake face, I'm sure you know who I am, right? So you know that the Kyuubi is sealed inside me. Naruto said while coughing up some blood. So what? Don't think you scare me, you pitiful genin. Orochimaru sneered at Naruto. I'm not trying to scare you. Did you know that I'm unable to use medical jutsu? Medical jutsu requires raw chakra to heal wounds, however there's a small side effect from having the Kyuubi sealed inside me. Naruto said while putting some pressure on Orochimaru's arms. When Orochimaru looked at Naruto's hands he saw that chakra with a reddish tint was gathered around them and winced when he felt 10 claws made of chakra pierce his skin. When I trained I found out that my raw chakra always has a very small amount of Kyuubi's chakra mixed with it, making it unusable for medical jutsu. Do you want to know why? Naruto said, not really asking. It's because the Kyuubi's chakra is poisonous to anyone but myself. It's so potent that even the smallest bit can cause severe damage. Naruto then used his claws to cut up Orochimaru's arms from the shoulders to his wrists, making Orochimaru scream out in pain. Orochimaru staggered back from the pain in his arms. He felt like they were burning up from the inside. Arg, what did you do to me? What is this jutsu? Orochimaru snarled at Naruto. It burns, doesn't it? At this very moment that small amount of Kyuubi's chakra is destroying your chakra coils inside your arms, making it impossible to ever use jutsus again. Not only that, your muscles and blood vessels are being destroyed as well, rendering your arms completely useless. Naruto smirked while falling down. The wound made from the Kusanagi was bleeding badly and it hurt like hell as well. Orochimaru couldn't believe what he was hearing. His arms had been destroyed by a genin. His ambition and dreams would end because of the Kyuubi container. No, there was no way he would accept that to happen. The pain however was getting too much for even him and retreat was the only option. For now he would let them live, but he would get his revenge eventually, he would make sure of that. You'll pay for this, Uzumaki Naruto. I swear that I will see you and this village destroyed. Next time we meet will be the day you die, count on that. Retreat. Orochimaru yelled out and immediately the 4 nin who held up the barrier were at his side helping him up before jumping away from the roof. Sarutobi slowly got up and made his way over to Naruto to help him with his wound. Even though he knew about his healing factor, he was still worried about his adoptive grandson. He had been very impressed with Naruto, not only fighting a Jinchuriki like himself and winning, but then fighting not one but 2 former Hokages and injuring a Sannin was beyond anything he had expected from the boy. He sat down next to him and saw that Naruto was looking up at the sky with a huge smile on his face, and Sandame too couldn't help but fall on his back and look up at the blue sky. They had survived a battle only described in legends and both of them were sure that this fight would be talked about for years. Hokage-sama, are you okay? Do you need a medic? The Anbu captain asked. They had seen the entire battle from outside the barrier and they were very impressed by Naruto. Never had they seen a battle like that before, and the fact that a genin was one of the fighters was nothing short of amazing. We're fine, Anbu-san. Do not concern yourself with us, go help the others in securing the village. The Hokage said tiredly. The village was his main concern right now. Hi, Hokage-sama. We have reports that indicated that the counterattack worked perfectly. The last of the enemy shinobi are being rounded up and taken in for questioning. It seemed that Sabaku no Gara personally stopped many of the Suna shinobi from attacking, making the enemy force much smaller than anticipated. The Anbu captain said. Very well, I expect your report on my desk in 2 days. For now, help the rest. Sandame said, dismissing the Anbu. It seems you made a real good impression on Gara if he wanted to help our village. Yeah, I guess so. What will happen to them, Jichin? Are they going to be punished? Naruto asked, a little worried for his newest friend. Do not worry, Naruto. I will personally see to it that Gara and his teammates are treated well and with respect. We owe him a great deal for stopping his fellow shinobi from attacking. Sandame said with a smile on his wrinkled face. Naruto nodded and closed his eyes, thinking about all the things that had happened today. Surely he would be remembering the day for a very long time. He sure hoped he wouldn't have to fight in a battle like that again anytime soon. If he learned one thing from this battle, it was that he still had lots of improvement and training to do, but that would have to wait until he was rested and healed. The wound from Orochimaru's sword was already healing, but he could feel that it would take a few days before he would be 100% again. Just then he heard a very familiar voice calling him, and it seemed to be a very angry voice as well. Uzumaki Naruto. What the hell were you thinking fighting Orochimaru like that? The voice yelled before he felt someone help him up and hugging him very tightly. He recognized his girlfriend and returned the hug. Not a second later he felt a fist hitting him on the head, remembering him that she was pissed beyond belief. Anko-chan, I can explain really. I didn't mean to fight him, but I couldn't let Jichin fight alone. Naruto said, trying to calm her down. Oi, Jichin, help me out here, will you? Don't bring me into this, Naruto. You brought this upon yourself. Sandame said, laughing loudly. The other Junin senseis had gathered as well after seeing Anko storm off. Hey, what happened to Konoha's famous teamwork? Some partner you turn out to be. Naruto said while glaring at the Sandame, causing more people to laugh. Do you have any idea what I went through when I saw you breaking through that barrier? Huh. I swear to God, if you ever pull a stunt like that again, I don't know what I will do yet, but it's going to hurt as hell. Do you hear me, Uzumaki Naruto? Anko yelled at him while holding a kunai close to his crotch. Hi Anko-sama. Naruto squeaked, earning some more laughs from the crowd. Good. Anko said before she grabbed him by the collar and kissed him in front of everybody. Naruto was a little shocked that she would kiss him in front of all her colleagues, but soon he kissed her back, glad that both of them were fine and survived the attack on their village. Since none of them except Kurenai knew they were a couple, most were staring at the two of them in disbelief. Here was one of the sexiest kunoichi in Konoha, one that a lot of men chased after, and Naruto was the one she was kissing. Kurenai laughed at the men's faces and the fact that she could almost feel a bit of envy and jealousy in the air coming from the men. When she was satisfied from the kiss, Anko released him and held him close, not wanting to let him go. Naruto, of course, was only happy to return the hug. Anko-chan, how is everybody else? Is everyone okay? Naruto asked while stifling a yawn. He was having trouble staying awake after all this fighting. Everyone's fine, don't worry. They all did fantastic, you have made us all very proud. She said, smiling at him. Good, if you don't mind, I would like to take a little nap right now. I feel a little tired. Naruto said while closing his eyes. Anko nodded and she sat down so he could lie down. The rest of the Junin were surprised to see Anko react this way, since she was known to be a bit eccentric to say the least. Seeing her like this, they knew Naruto must have a huge influence on her, and most of them were glad to see the two of them so happy. They all knew about how Anko and Naruto were treated sometimes in the village because of their pasts. The Sandame struggled to get up and was helped by Guy, who was shouting how youthful his Hokage must be if he still had the strength to get up after the fight. Luckily the others distracted him when they told him to go check up on Lee, which made him leave in a hurry. They liked the man, but his shouting was something that they could do without at the moment, so better to deal with it this way. The Sandame walked to the edge of the roof and looked over the village and sighed happily. Though there was a lot of damage, Konoha had survived an attack head on, and he had survived, but he had made up his mind. One thing Orochimaru had said was true, things would have to change to ensure their survival. Konoha had been stagnant for too long. He would deal with that in a few days though, now he needed a rest and then things would start happening again. Naruto wake up feeling great and well rested. He looked around and saw the familiar bedroom in Anko's apartment. He got out of bed and went to look for Anko, who he knew was home since he had woken up from the sounds of someone showering. He entered the kitchen and saw his girlfriend standing there wearing nothing but a towel exposing a serious amount of skin. Though he was used to it by now, she still had an effect on him and she knew it all too well. She loved to tease him and try to embarrass him whenever she got the chance, and secretly he liked it as well. Good morning, Anko-chan. Naruto said, slowly hugging her from behind her, making her spin around so she could face him. Good morning to you too, Naruto-kun, she said before kissing him. Finally awake, huh? It took you a while. I thought you would be up much sooner than that. How long have I been out? He asked, surprised. You've slept for 2 whole days. But I guess you deserved some rest, so I let you sleep, she said, grinning. But don't think for 1 minute that you're out of the doghouse, mister. I'll find a way to punish you for that stunt you pulled. 2 days. I slept for 2 days. Wow, what happened while I was asleep? Naruto asked. And I'm sorry for fighting Orochimaru, but if I didn't help Jichin he would have been killed, and that was something that I couldn't allow to happen. I know, just because I'm a little mad doesn't mean I don't understand the reason why you fought. And I'm very proud of you, you were amazing, Naruto. Lots of people have been talking about you and the rest of the genin, but more on that later. Anko said while sitting down to eat her breakfast. For now you need to take a shower and eat because the Sandaime asked to see you as soon as you were awake. Naruto nodded and quickly went to take a shower, which he enjoyed very much, before getting dressed and eating breakfast. Anko too had gotten dressed and was ready to leave, and a good 20 minutes later they were walking to the Hokage Tower. Naruto watched around looking at the damage Konoha had suffered from the attack. His village had taken some heavy blows, but he was sure that they could and would repair everything with time. When they passed a large crowd, Naruto was surprised that some of the people smiled at him or even waved at him, and he looked at Anko for an explanation. A lot of people have heard how you helped saving the Hokage and how you fought to protect the village, she answered softly. The people of Konoha love the Sandaime, he's always kind and caring. They want to thank you for saving their leader, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded, a little red from the praise and the stares he was getting, but unlike before, these were stares of kindness and some form of respect for him. He couldn't be more happier. Maybe he had succeeded a little in his dream that the people of Konoha would see him as Naruto and not as the Kyuubi child. He thought about it for the rest of the trip to the tower and vowed to keep doing his best to prove his was anything but a demon. When they arrived at the tower, they went straight for the Hokage's office, and to his surprise all the rest of the genin were gathered there as well. Before he got a chance to ask, however, they were told to go inside. When they entered the office, they saw that beside the Hokage all of the Junin senseis, Iruka sensei, Inoshika Cho senior team and Hyuga Hiyashi were gathered there. Ah, welcome, I'm glad to see all of you in good health, please take a seat everyone, the Sandaime said while happily puffing on his pipe. When everyone had found a seat, he continued. First of all, let me say how proud I am to know each and every one of you. You have proven yourself to be excellent shinobi of the leaf, and you have defended your home village splendidly, and for that you have my thanks. Now, let us get to the real reason we called you here today. Hyuga Neji, Inazuka Kiba, Aburame Shino and Ten please step forward, the Hokage asked, to which the genin got up and took a step forward, a little confused. Hyuga Neji, during you fight in the finals you have shown an mastery of the Hyuga techniques like few did before you. When the attack hit us, you were willing to put your personal differences aside for the good of Konoha, and for that I thank you. You and the genin beside you fought alongside with the Anbu to protect this very tower and its secrets, and while I can't award you the rank of Chunin, let it be known that the Anbu were very impressed with the 4 of you. Sandaime said. They have told me that if any of you would ever like to join the Anbu they would be waiting. Inazuka Kiba and Aburame Shino, I'm sure the 2 of you were as disappointed as I was when your match was interfered and cancelled by the attack. I would have loved to see the fight between the 2 of you. Like Neji, I can't award you with the rank of Chunin, but once again the Anbu were impressed and they will keep an eye for the 2 of you, he said, smiling at Kiba's shocked face. Ten, while you didn't fight during the finals, you fought marvelously during the invasion, and according to the Anbu you're well on your way to become Konoha's next weapons mistress. They were very impressed at the way you fought. You too will be granted an invitation to join the Anbu when they think you're strong enough, the Sandaime said with pride. 1010 was a bright red color by the time the Hokage was finished and could hardly believe the praise she had gotten. The four genin were told to sit down, which they quickly did. Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru and Akamichi Choji, please step forward. The Hokage said, calling for the next group of genin. The three of you protected Konoha Hospital from destruction and hereby saved dozens of lives. I thank you for the bottom of my heart. You have impressed many people with your actions and your fathers, and I have decided that the three of you are ready to learn the more advanced clan techniques of your respective family. He said, making the genin look towards their dads, earning a nod from them. Nara Shikamaru, during your fights in the Chunin exams you have demonstrated to possess an excellent mind capable of strategic thinking. You have shown us that you understand what the best actions are in any given situation. A shinobi is not someone who only fights, a shinobi knows when it is time to fight and when not. You forfeited your match even when you won the battle for the right reasons, sometimes it's better to fight another day. For your understanding of this and for your incredible demonstration I hereby award you the rank of Chunin. Congratulations. Sandaime said, handing a Chunin jacket to Shikamaru, who accepted it with pride. The rest of genin clapped, glad that their friend had been recognized for his hard work. Uchiha Sasuke, please step forward. Sandaime said, making Sasuke step up with a smirk on his face. You have fought well during the invasion, helping defeat the enemy that attacked the stadium, and for that I thank you. Unfortunately I cannot make you a Chunin for several reasons. The first is that you should have been disqualified for the finals for coming late. Sasuke's smirk disappeared soon after that, and secondly you disobeyed a direct order from a superior shinobi. Sasuke, do not presume your name will grant you everything. Had this been a normal mission you would have been punished for insubordination, but the Junin in question asked for a verbal warning only. Consider yourself lucky. Sandaime finished sternly. Haruno Sakura, Hyuga Hinata and Uzumaki Naruto, please step forward. He continued. The three of you saved not only Iruka here but also all of our future shinobi. Had the three of you not been there I would have to inform a lot of parents that their son or daughter had been killed for being an academy student. Thank you for not making me do that. There is nothing worse than informing someone that their child has been killed. He solemnly said. Haruno Sakura, it is said that admitting a mistake is harder than making one, and I find this being true. You admitted being wrong in your ways of becoming a kunoichi and you have redeemed yourself with the help of your friends. I am very proud of you and so is your Junin sensei, and we expect you to continue to work hard. You have become a true kunoichi of the leaf and I'm sure you'll become very strong. He said, looking at Sakura, who had tears in her eyes from happiness. Hyuga Hinata, of all the people here you are the one who impressed me the most. Your fight with Neji was nothing short of amazing. For someone as young as yourself to start creating a powerful taijutsu style capable of fighting the Jukin on equal level is absolutely amazing. I hope you keep on working very hard now that you have shown us just how strong you truly are. I know your father would like to say a few words, so please listen to him. Sandaime said, looking at Hiyashi, who nodded. Hinata turned to her dad and prepared for the worst. Hinata, for many years I saw your kindness and gentleness as a weakness unfit for a heir of the Hyuga family. I made you suffer for several years and I cannot even begin to imagine how much you must resent me for it. I can only say how sorry I am and that I will try to be a better father for you. You have proven yourself to be strong and I have never been so glad that I was wrong about something. Your mother would be so proud of you, Hinata, I know I am. Hiyashi said while looking at his daughter. Hinata was shocked when she heard her father's words. Not only did he apologize but he even told her he was proud of her. This was something she had wanted to hear for years and she couldn't help but a few tears of happiness ran down her cheeks before she went over to give her estranged father a small hug, showing that she forgave him. She then returned to her place alongside Sakura and Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, what can I say that hasn't already been said today? During the Chunin exams you've shown me that you have surpassed my wildest expectations. You defeated Gaara, who was nothing more than a killing machine, but you didn't only defeat him, you changed him as well. You showed him that a life of killing people isn't the only way, you saved him from himself, and that is something that not many people can achieve. During your fight you used a technique thought lost when the Yondaime Hokage died while protecting this village, a technique beyond most of the Konoha shinobi, a technique that not even I can perform. The Hokage said, earning a gasp from most of the genin. They had been told about that technique but they didn't know it was so special and hard to perform. You helped taking control of the situation after receiving your orders from your sensei and showed that you are capable of leading a team. Therefore it's my pleasure to award you with the rank of Chunin. Congratulations, you've earned it. Sandaime said beaming with pride when he handed the jacket to his adoptive grandson. Thank you Hokage-sama. Naruto said while accepting it. He was enormously happy, he had done it. He had become a Chunin, he was a step closer to realizing his dream of become Hokage and he couldn't be prouder of himself. The rest of the genin, except one brooding Sasuke, congratulated Naruto and told him that he deserved it. As a final word, I would like to say that each and every one of you have made me and your Junin sensei very proud. You have made Konoha proud and have shown to us that each and every one of you possess the will of fire. Continue to work hard to protect the village and those you love. All of you are dismissed except Naruto and Anko. He finished before dropping in his chair. He still needed some more rest but he couldn't afford to do nothing, the village needed him right now. Sit Naruto, the official part is over, you can relax now. Sandaime said joking. He knew how much Naruto hated formalities no matter what. Naruto grinned and sat down with Anko next to him. First of all, let me congratulate you again on making Chunin. You earned it. Thanks Jichin. That means a lot to me. Naruto said smiling. Naruto, I owe you my life. If you hadn't broken into the barrier to fight alongside with me I wouldn't have survived of that I'm sure. Sandaime said. Stop it Jichin, I'm just repaying you for everything you did for me. Besides it's only normal that I would help you, you're the leader of the village I love and you're one my precious people. Naruto said making it sound like he did the most obvious thing in the world. Fine, anyway the reason why I still needed to talk to you is the following. Now that you made Chunin, you can use your dad's name if you want. If you choose to use it then I will announce it to the village tonight. He continued. Of course I want to use dad's name but what is happening tonight? Naruto asked. Tonight is the funeral of the people who died during the attack and I will have to speak to the crowd. Morale is at an all-time low now Naruto. Though we suffered much less damage than we expected we still lost 13 shinobi. Therefore I personally think that the village could use some good news for once. Sandaime said while looking out the window. Naruto nodded, he understood the importance of keeping the villagers occupied and somewhat happy otherwise problems would start appearing and that was something they couldn't deal with right now. I'm old Naruto, too old to be Hokage. Orochimaru was right in one thing, things need to change and therefore I will be retiring from the post of Hokage as soon as possible. Sandaime said shocking both Naruto and Anko who started protesting. Calm down, both of you. I have a successor in mind who will do an excellent job. Ah, so you finally saw reason. Fine give me the hat, old man. I'll take care of the village for you. Naruto said jokingly making both Anko and Sandaime laugh. Thank you Naruto I needed that. I'm sorry but while I'm sure that one day you will be Hokage for now you'll have to wait. He said making Naruto pout in his seat. But I have a request, I want you to join Jiraiya in finding my successor. She's my former student and she'll do fine as a Godime Hokage. You mean Tsunade-sama is your chosen successor? Anko asked surprised. Really? You want her to become Hokage? It thought you told me she hated the village after losing her brother and lover in the war. Naruto said. While it is true Tsunade left the village, she doesn't hate it. It's just too painful for her to remain here where everything reminds her of those she lost. Jiraiya is looking for clues to where she might be and he'll be back by next week. Sandaime explained. But why do you want me to go with him? I mean, I don't even know the woman, how can I help then? Naruto asked confused about his part. Naruto, you convinced a Jinchuriki who had been killing for years to give up that way of living. If anyone has a chance at convincing Tsunade in becoming Hokage it's you. Sandaime laughed. Naruto just looked at Sandaime but nodded, in fact he was anxious to meet Tsunade. She was one of the strongest shinobi the Leaf had ever had and maybe she could teach him some stuff beside medical jutsu. So I'll leave next week. Fine by me, just send Ero Sennin to come and get me. Naruto said. After Sandaime told him to be ready for the revelation of his name later tonight he dismissed them saying that his friends were waiting for him outside. Both of them nodded and left to find the rest of the Genin, Junin senseis and their fathers. They didn't have to search long as they were waiting for them just in front of the tower and they quickly made their way over to them. Hey everybody, what going on? Naruto asked. Ah Naruto, Anko, now that the two of you are here we can get to business. We're going to celebrate, of course. I mean, you and Shikamaru have made Chunin and the rest of the genin have received the Hokage's personal thanks. Kurenai started. This calls for a drink. On the way they encountered Lee, who was still injured badly, and Guy, and they too were invited to join them. At this everybody, except Sasuke, who left saying that he had better things to do, cheered and followed Kurenai. They went to a small restaurant. Choji was complaining he was hungry, and ordered lots of drinks and food. They were talking amongst each other and were having a great time, talking about how proud they were of themselves and what they had planned for future training. So Naruto, can I ask you a question? Kakashi asked, looking up from his orange book. Sure thing Kakashi-sensei, but I can't promise I'll be able to answer it. Naruto said from across the table. What exactly happened after you penetrated that barrier? I mean, there are plenty of rumors going around, but what really happened? He asked, interested. The others were now listening as well, seeing they too wanted to know. Well, and for the next 20 minutes Naruto told them how he fought alongside Sandaime to defeat Orochimaru, though he didn't explain why his raw chakra had such an effect on Orochimaru's arms. Everybody was listening so intently that most of them forget about the food and drinks, well except Choji and his dad. This was nothing like the rumors they heard. Some parts were the same, but in the end the truth was even more shocking than the rumors. Holy shit! Kiba exclaimed, earning a slap on the head from Kurenai for his language. Everybody laughed, but they all thought the same thing as Kiba. Yash, Naruto-kun, flames of youth are burning wildly. Did you hear, Lee? When you're healed we'll have to work hard. Guy yelled out, making everyone but Lee wince at the volume. Yes, Guy-sensei, and if I can't become as strong as Naruto then I will run 1,000 laps around Konoha with extra weights, Lee added loudly. And if you can't do that, then I will climb the Hokage monument with only one hand, and Guy would have continued, but Asuma held his hand over Guy's mouth, saying they understood. But seriously Naruto, how did you get that strong? Ten asked. She had been very impressed with his sword, and when she had heard that he forged it himself her respect for the blonde Chunin went through the roof. Naruto thought for a second before he looked at Anko and smiled. He put his arms around her, grabbing her into a hug and kissed her on the cheek before turning back to Ten. Everyone was looking at the two of them. Ten, I'm strong because I had the best teacher someone could ever have. She taught me everything I know, and without her I wouldn't be half the shinobi I am today. Anko-chan here trained me for 6 months, and during that time I realized what being a shinobi is all about. After that I joined Team 8 and Kurenai-sensei, and they are without a doubt the best team I could ever have joined. We trained and lived together, helping each other, getting stronger and better shinobi. Finally there's Sandaime Jichin. He taught me that a shinobi can get truly strong when he fights to protect the ones he loves, and that became my motivation. Naruto said while still holding Anko in his arms. I think I understand, but still Naruto, you were the dead last in the academy and now only a year later you're the strongest of us all. Ino said softly. She didn't want to hurt Naruto's feelings by calling him dead last again. Ino, there's a reason why I was the dead last, and someday I'll you tell all about it, but for now it needs to be a secret. I hope you understand. Naruto said. Ino nodded, not wanting to lose the fragile friendship she had started with Naruto during the month before the finals. I have a question if you don't mind. Asuma said, and Naruto just nodded to show he didn't mind at all. What's between you and Anko? I love her. She's my teacher, my best friend, and hopefully one day the mother of my children, though that's still in the far future. Naruto answered with a smile. Anko, who heard the mother part, just turned to him and kissed him soundly on the lips, showing just how much she liked that idea. After that the girls grilled Anko about how they got together, while the men congratulated Naruto for landing one of the sexiest kunoichi in Konoha. They continued to talk and eat for several hours before they had to get ready for the funeral service later that day. They promised to meet each other there and went to their respective homes. When Naruto and Anko arrived at her apartment they still had some time left, so they cuddled on the couch, happy to have each other. After resting a bit, Anko told him that she was going to get a shower while Naruto picked out his clothes for the service. He would have to be presentable when the Sandaime announced his heritage to the village. He went over to his closet and started going through his clothes. Finding a long-sleeved black shirt, he grabbed it and put it on the bed. Next he found a dark blue pants with he thought would go great with the dark shirt. On top of his shirt he would wear a black jacket. All in all he looked quite handsome in all black, but seeing as this was a funeral service, black was the only color acceptable in his mind. Anko stepped out of the shower feeling somewhat nervous for the events later on, the funeral she could deal with as she didn't know any of the fallen shinobi. She was nervous about the announcement of Naruto's heritage and what the consequences could be like for them. She was a little worried about how the town's people would react after hearing that the Kyuubi brat was none other than the Yondaimi's son. Naruto's reputation had changed quite a bit after his battle alongside the Sandaime, but it wasn't to say that everyone loved him or respected him. That would be impossible as changes like that need time. She stepped into the bedroom and saw Naruto standing fully dressed, and she had to admit he looked great in them. Seeing him standing there, she unconsciously licked her lips in desire, but she shook her head saying that there wasn't time for that. She quickly opened her closet and grabbed her dark dress and nodded. She didn't like wearing such clothes, but for a funeral she only wore this. It was a beautiful dress that wasn't too revealing but still stylish and somber. After getting dressed she stepped outside the room and saw Naruto staring at her. She smirked, loving that she could have such an effect on her lover. After both of them got ready they left for the Hokage Tower where the service would be held. The tower had enough open space to allow the village's shinobis to gather. The funeral was only accessible to shinobi and family, so that was more than enough space. When they arrived they saw that the other were already there waiting for them. Nodding to everyone, the shinobi silently made their way over to the front so that they could pay their respects to those who had fallen to protect Konoha. Almost every shinobi had or would have to come to such a ceremony, so most of them knew what they had to do or what would happen. When everyone had gone forward, the Sandaime slowly got up and walked to the front of the podium and looked at those present. Our village has suffered a great loss, a loss that will be felt for years to come. In the attack on Konoha several days ago we didn't just lose several shinobi, we lost husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters. Each of the shinobi had loved ones that they protected by paying the ultimate price. They fought not only for this village but also for those gathered here today. We will miss them greatly, but we will never forget them. They are heroes and thus should be honored as one. Sandaime started his words. They have shown us what it means to be a Konoha shinobi, and I for one could not have been more proud of them. Fallen heroes of Konoha, I thank you. He finished while bowing deeply to the coffins, making everyone gathered there do the same. The rest of the ceremony was spent in silence as one by one some of the family or friends of the deceased came forward and spent a few memories with the crowd. Soon the service came to an end and Sandaime asked them to gather at the town's main square for an important announcement that concerned the whole village. Wondering what kind of announcement this could be, they all followed the crowd to the main square. When they arrived they saw that a lot of people had gathered there already. Anko and Naruto were asked by an Anbu to follow him to see the Hokage, making the rest of the group wonder what was going on. Kiba, Shino, Hinata and Kurenai smiled knowingly, already figuring out what was going to happen next. A half hour later the Sandaime finally made his appearance at the stage, silencing the crowd. People of Konoha, we're gathered here today after Konoha suffered from an enemy attack. We lost some good people to the attacks and we have sustained lots of damage. Yet I stand here before you knowing that we can get through this together. We will not succumb to our fears and grieve, but we will strive to once again rise up from the ashes like a phoenix. We will show the world that Konoha isn't some weak village, and to do that we will work together like we always have in the past. Together we can overcome anything that comes our way. Together we will show them what it means to be from Konoha. Sandaime shouted to the crow, and slowly but surely the crowd answered with cries of agreement. I have more news that will rock Konoha's very foundations, and for that I ask that you be patient for a little longer. For almost 14 years I have kept a promise to keep a secret. This promise was made to our beloved Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato. The time to reveal the contents of that promise had come. The Sandaime said into the microphone so that everyone could hear what he was about to reveal. The people gathered were already talking amongst themselves, wondering what the secret from the Yondaime could be. Many of you know how Minato was married, but not a lot of people knew who he was married to and that his wife was pregnant of his child. The night of his death Yondaime asked me to keep this information secret until his child was old enough to protect himself and those he loves. Sandame paused for a few seconds. Minato feared that if the knowledge of him having a child would become known, then his child's life would be in grave danger from his former enemies, and I believe he was correct. The child of Konoha's yellow flash would be a prime target for assassination, thus I kept quiet. I watched Minato's child grow up from a distance and saw that just as his dad before him became a remarkable shinobi of the leaf, willing to risk his life to protect the village and its inhabitants, something he proved during the attack on our village just a few days ago. People of Konoha, I would like to introduce to you all, the son of Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. Please step forward. Namikaze Naruto, formerly known as Uzumaki Naruto. Sandame spoke loudly. Naruto stepped out of the shadow dressed in his usual outfit but with his Chunin vest on and faced the crowd. He bowed to the Sandame and then to the people in front of them. The crowd was shocked into silence. Nobody could utter a word at the revelations. They could hardly believe that the one many people saw as the Kyuubi brat was none other than the Yondaime's son. This had to be a joke or something. People started whispering and talking to those standing next to them, and soon the whole place was ready to turn into chaos. Naruto looked at Anko and Sandame and they gave him an encouraging smile, telling him to proceed. People of Konoha, please listen to me. Naruto said into the microphone, and as one the crowd fell back into silence. I'm sure this must be a shock to many of you, but please hear me out. I know many of you are surprised to hear that someone like me is the son of one of the greatest heroes of our village. For years I saw the Yondaime as my greatest hero myself. He was the man I wanted to become, he was my goal and still is my goal. To me he was everything I wanted to be, so you can imagine my surprise when I discovered that he was my father. He ended softly. My father loved this village and everyone living in it, and for this village he was willing to sacrifice his life. On the night the Kyuubi attacked, he didn't hesitate to protect this village, and in the end he succeeded in saving us all, but so many lives had already been lost. I realize I'm a reminder of what happened that night, and for that I'm truly sorry. But my father entrusted me with a mission to protect this village just like he did, and I intend to honor his wish. He continued while grabbing a kunai from his holster. The people were listening to him with attention and saw him take out the kunai. Naruto placed the edge of the kunai in the palm of his right hand and made a deep cut, making blood fall on the ground. Like my father before me, I swear on my blood and the pain in my hand that I will protect this village until my dying breath. I will fight all of Konoha's enemies and those foolish enough to try and hurt us. This is my promise to you all, and those who know me know that I never break a promise, ever. Naruto said before bowing deeply to the crowd. The stunned crowd was silent for a few seconds before several people started clapping in their hands and cheering for him. Slowly more and more people joined the clapping and cheering, filling the area with excitement. Sandame was looking at the crowd with pride in his eyes. Never had he been so proud of his village, and it showed. Though many people would still need convincing, he believed Naruto had made a big step in gaining the acknowledgement from the villagers. After that, people started to go home still shocked from the revelations they heard, leaving only Naruto and his closest friends and surrogate family. Those who already knew Naruto's secret were happy that things had gone so well, but they also knew that many people were too shocked to fully understand what just happened. The next few days would really show in what degree Naruto would be accepted by the village. The others who didn't know anything about this were shocked, but now that they thought about it, they had to admit that the resemblance between father and son was obvious, and they were slightly embarrassed that they didn't make the connection by themselves. They didn't ask too many questions, knowing that this had been an emotional evening for Naruto, so they just said their goodbyes for the night and promised to meet up the next to help out with the repairs of the village. The next week went fast for the group. Each of them was assigned a task that would help rebuild the village. Academy students were ordered to help clean the debris from the destroyed buildings, and genin were asked to help rebuild the outer wall that protected the village. Chunin and Junin were asked to take care of the remaining missions since they couldn't show any weakness and thus had to keep on taking the requests of their clients. Naruto, however, was asked to help in the village since Jiraiya could return any day with information about Tsunade and her whereabouts. Naruto seemed to enjoy helping out, and with the large amount of cage bunshin that he was able to make, he was a one-man's army. He and his clones took care of the buildings that were only partially damaged and that could be repaired, and by the end of the week most of the work was done to a great relief of the villagers. Speaking of the villagers, a lot of them had started to accept Naruto and some even apologized for how they treated him when he was younger. Naruto smiled and said that the past is in the past and that they only had to worry about the present and the future. Especially the younger generations, those who had born several years before and after him were seeing Naruto as a hero for saving the Sandaime and helping in the fights. The older people however were still wary and mostly set in their way of thinking, but that was something he could deal with. His friends were already over the shock and treated him no different than before. To them he was still Naruto, and being the son of the Yondaime wouldn't change that, which Naruto was grateful for. They had asked some questions, but that was the end of that, and they spent a lot of time together after their mission for the day was done. Naruto was sitting on the top of the Hokage monument looking at the village and thinking how much his life had changed over the past year. After years of struggling he finally made progress on his way to being Hokage. He had made Chunin, and to him it seemed surreal, but he knew he had worked hard for it and that he deserved it. He wondered what would happen now and how things would play out for him and his friends. He sensed a familiar person approaching him and turned around. "Hey Gaki, your girlfriend told me I could find you here," Jiraiya said while sitting down next to him. "Yeah, I like to come here and think about everything that's going on in my life. Ever since I was a little kid this place seemed to be my safe haven." "Weird huh?" Naruto said with a smile. "Not really, everybody needs a place where they can relax. Mine is a hot spring where I can do research," Jiraiya said with a perverted grin on his face. "That reminds me, why didn't you tell me you had such a sexy girlfriend? Care to share some details?" He continued, pulling out a notebook. "You answered your own question, Ero Sennin. I better not hear that you used Anko-chan and me as inspiration or else," Naruto warned him. "Peef Gaki, you're several decades too young to be any threat to the great Jiraiya-sama," he snorted. "That may be so, but I'm sure Tsunade would be glad to punish you in my stead. I do remember her having a super strong punch," Naruto said with a grin, making Jiraiya pale at the thought of being punched by one of Tsunade's fists. "Fine, you win," Jiraiya sighed. "Anyway, I need to talk to you, Anko and the old man. It's urgent, so go get her and meet me at the tower." Naruto nodded and used Shunshin no Jutsu to get home faster. Once there he grabbed Anko, telling her that they were needed at the Hokage's office right away. She nodded and they started making their way over to the tower. They immediately went to the office and knocked before entering. "Ah, good you're here, please sit down," Sandaime said looking very serious. "Alright Jiraiya, what's going on? First I'll like to say that I have a lead on Tsunade, so we'll leave tomorrow before she gets away again," Jiraiya said while leaning against the wall. "Very well, Naruto, you heard the man. Be ready by 5 a.m. and meet us at the North Gate," Sandaime ordered Naruto, who simply nodded. "What's next?" "Right, and this is the bad part. As you know, my spy network is one of the best in the world, and for years I have been gathering information on Orochimaru and his whereabouts. Several years ago I heard that he joined an organization called Akatsuki, and for quite some time I didn't know what their purpose was. No matter what I tried, information on them was almost non-existent and their actions were sparse," Jiraiya told them. "But about a year ago I heard an interesting story about them and I started researching them for up close, and what I found was anything but good. It seems that Akatsuki's members are some of the most dangerous Nukenin in the Bingo book. It's safe to say that each and every one of them is classified as AS rank shinobi, and I have an idea of some of their identities. What I sure of is that Uchiha Itachi is one of them, so we can assume that they'll all be around his level," Jiraiya said, shocking them all. "Are you sure? That's most disturbing indeed. Do you have any idea what their goal is?" Sandaime said, his pipe long forgotten. "I did hear something, and that's why Naruto should hear this. I discovered that they are trying to gather the 9 Biju, for what I don't know, but they will be hunting down the Biju and the Jinchuriki pretty soon. Until now they have been gathering information, money and manpower, but it seems that this stage of their plan is reaching an end." Jiraiya finished before walking to the window and sitting down next to it. "So they're after the Kyuubi. But how would they get it? I mean, Dad sealed it and you told me that it can never get free, right?" Naruto asked, a little shaken by what he just heard. "While it's true that Minato's seal is very strong, I believe that they have a way to extract the Biju from the Jinchuriki, otherwise they wouldn't start such an organization," Jiraiya said. "What would happen to Naruto if the Kyuubi is extracted from him?" Anko asked, concerned. "Honestly, I have no idea, but I think it's best to assume that Naruto wouldn't survive the process. He answered softly. He didn't want to scare them, but he thought it was best that they knew what was going on. Keeping secrets from Naruto would only result in tragedy. He needed to know about what was going to happen. Anko-chan, no need to panic yet. Thanks Ero-Sennin for telling me all this. I guess there's only one option, and that's to train and get stronger so I can defeat them. Naruto, while holding Anko's hand so she would calm down a little. Glad to hear you say that, Gaki, because I'm taking you as my apprentice from here on out. Anko here has done a great job in training you, but if you want to become strong enough to face S-rank shinobi, you'll need a lot more than she can teach you. No offense, Anko. Jiraiya said, giving her a little smile. None taken. You're right, Naruto will need your guidance, but I'll warn you right now, if you turn Naruto into a pervert you will regret it. Do I make myself clear? Anko said, advancing on the Sannin with a kunai spinning in her hand. Jiraiya quickly nodded, hoping she wouldn't use the kunai to cut off his most prized body part. Okay, calm down, Anko. I'm sure Naruto will be fine. Sandame chuckled at the scene. A few hours later they had come up with a temporary plan to start Naruto's training and how they would proceed to deal with the Akatsuki. They would take care of a more detailed plan when Naruto and Jiraiya returned from searching Tsunade and hopefully return with her ready to become the Godime Hokage. Naruto and Anko went home since Naruto had to leave in a few hours and they wanted to spend a little time together before he left. So Jiraiya, what do you think about Naruto? Sandame asked his former student. The kid is strong, that's for sure, but he'll need a lot more training if he wants to have a chance against Akatsuki. Jiraiya said. That's why we're here, isn't it? To teach him and help him get stronger. Sandame said while taking his pipe in his hand. Jiraiya nodded and said his goodbye as well, telling his teacher that he would see him at the gate the next morning. Sandame nodded and walked over to the window where he could see the faces of the previous Hokages carved into the mountain. He looked over at the Yondaime's head and couldn't help but feeling sad. He always thought that Naruto should have had his dad at his side to guide him through life, but seeing as that was impossible, he would gladly take on that duty. Minato, you and Kushina would have been so proud of Naruto. No matter what, I promise to both of you that I will do my very best to ensure his safety. There is no doubt in my mind that he will become the greatest Hokage of all times, and I'll make sure he gets there. Sandame thought before he turned around and walked to the door, hoping to get some sleep as well. The next morning Naruto woke up with mixed feelings. On the one hand he felt very excited to leave on this trip training with a legendary Sannin while looking for another Sannin, but on the other hand he had to leave the village just when he had finally earned some recognition. Add the fact that there still was a lot of work to be done to repair the damage in the village. Naruto felt like he was almost betraying the village by leaving. When he voiced his thoughts to Anko, she smiled and said that he wasn't doing anything of the sort. On the contrary, he was ensuring the welfare of the village by finding Tsunade. Naruto couldn't really deny the fact that he was getting the next Hokage back to the village, so he accepted the fact that he would be leaving the village for some time. After eating breakfast, Naruto got ready for departure, which would be in an hour. He grabbed his sword, his holster and pouch and put them on. He then grabbed the belt he had made before the Chunin exams and sealed some extra stuff like his research on the Hiraishin no Jutsu and some reading material. Though he wasn't sure if he would have time for that, seeing he most probably would already be learning stuff. Van Jiraiya. After putting his Chunin vest on, he exited the bedroom and went to get Anko so they could leave together. Anko watched with pride at Naruto as he wore the vest he earned. She was so proud of him and his accomplishments, and even she had gotten some friendly smiles and nods from the townspeople. Being the one who taught Naruto had earned her lots of respect, especially amongst the Junin senseis. The best was when she saw some of Naruto's old academy teachers' faces when they heard that he had saved the Hokage, and him being the son of the Yondaime, she would forever remember the look on their faces. Revenge is sweet and all that. They both walked in silence towards the gate, each of them lost in their own thoughts, enjoying the comfortable silence while holding hands. They had no reason to hide their relationship anymore, so they weren't concerned about it. When the gate came into view, they saw that most of the genin and the senseis had gathered there with Jiraiya and the Sandame. Hey everyone, what are you all doing here? Naruto asked. Do you think you would get to leave without saying goodbye? That's not going to happen, you know. Kiba said before clapping Naruto on the back. It's not like I'll be gone for months guys, I'll be back before you know it. Naruto said chuckling. On the inside however he was very touched that his friends came to say goodbye and wish him luck. Alright Gaki, let's get going shall we? I want to be in the next town by this afternoon. Right behind you Ero Senin. See you guys later okay? Take care of things here for me. He turned to Anko and gave her a long kiss goodbye and raced out after Jiraiya who was waiting for him a little further. Anko smiled and yelled out that he better come back safely or that she would have to hurt him. She looked at how he disappeared into the forest and she turned to Kurenai who was smiling at her. The rest of the genin were talking amongst them saying that they would have to get stronger if they wanted to keep up with Naruto. Keep up with Naruto. Good luck with that. Kiba said laughing. Every time I think that I have caught up with him he proves me wrong. But one day I'll defeat him in a fair fight, that has been my goal ever since he defeat Momochi Zabuza in the wave. Naruto is lucky to have such good friends at his side. I'm sure that each and every one of you will become very strong, your senseis will make sure of that. Keep working hard and there isn't a thing you can't do. Sandame said while looking at the group of friends. The Sandame told them that today they would work on the repairs on the south side of the village where a huge snake had dealt severe damage to inner walls. Those walls were very important to the defenses of the village so they had to be repaired as soon as possible. The genin nodded and dismissed themselves before getting to work. The 5 of you follow me. The Sandame said to the Junin senseis. We have much to discuss today. He said before walking to the Hokage's tower making them, except Anko, wonder what was going on. The rest of the morning was spent with Sandame explaining about Akatsuki and how they would have to deal with them. Naruto and Jiraiya had been walking in silence for about an hour before Naruto broke the silence when he asked Jiraiya where they were headed to. Jiraiya had only told him to meet this morning but nothing more. He also wondered what he would be learning from the perverted Sannin. He knew the man was strong. You didn't become a Sannin without being strong, but he also knew how easy the man was distracted if he saw a beautiful girl or how much time he spent researching for his next installment of Ika Ika Paradise. That's just the thing Gaki. I don't know exactly where Tsunade is but she was last seen in a town a few days from here so that's where we're going. Jiraiya said while looking at Naruto. So this is a wild goose chase of some sort. Gaki, you better pray that Tsunade doesn't hear that or she'll punch your lights out. He said laughing loudly. Don't worry, we have time and while we're traveling we'll work on some training for you. Really? What kind of training? New ninjutsu or maybe some new taijutsu? Easy there, yeesh you're just like your dad. Always wanting to know new jutsu or learn new things. Jiraiya said a little sad remembering his prized pupil. But I guess I can teach you some of my jutsu but first I would like to know what skill you already have. So for the next few hours Naruto and Jiraiya discussed Naruto's skill level and what he needed to work on and improve. Jiraiya would also teach him some more about seals seeing that Naruto already had a healthy interest in that particular field of study. He even offered help with figuring out the Hiraishin no Jutsu, but Naruto declined saying that he wanted to master this jutsu on his own and Jiraiya accepted that but told him that in case he had questions he could always help him out. Alright Gaki, there's a small town up ahead that's where we will spend the rest of the afternoon so we can have a little spar and we'll spend the night there as well. Spar. Great. I can't wait to see you fight. Ji-chan said that you and Orochimaru were about the same level. Orochimaru and I have always been rivals ever since our genin days but he was a genius while I had to work hard to master any technique. But he was obsessed by jutsu and always wanted more and more. When he betrayed the village I couldn't stop him because I still considered him my friend and rival. Jiraiya explained a little about the relationship between the two of them. What about Tsunade-sama? Tsunade. Well, she was always interested in becoming a medical nin but that doesn't mean she can't fight. I'm sure you heard about her super strength. Jiraiya asked making Naruto nod. Everybody knew about that. She was legendary because of it. She kicked my ass more than once but we got along fairly well. Except about the research thing, right? Oh yeah, she hates that part of me. So how about you? Do you have a rival amongst your friends? Well, before I trained with Anko I considered Sasuke my biggest rival. He's considered a genius while I was the dead last, and with the Sharingan he's a very strong opponent, and he always got respected by the village just because he was an Uchiha, so for a while he was my rival. Naruto said before pausing a little. But while training with Anko I realized that Sasuke isn't the sort of rival I want. Sure, he's strong, I'll be the first to admit it, but his goal of revenge and his need for power is something that I cannot comprehend. While I understand the feelings he has for his brother, and if I had been in Sasuke's place I would want revenge too, but not in the same way. Oh. How would you do it then? I would also train to get stronger, that's for sure, but I wouldn't focus on killing him. I would focus on surpassing him, and if I ever encountered him again, then and only then would I fight him. Sakura told me that Sasuke wants to revive the Uchiha clan, but every time a girl approaches him he tells them to get lost. Every time someone wants to get to know him and be his friends he just sneers at them and leaves. Naruto said while thinking. While I understand what you're saying, Naruto, I also understand Sasuke a little. He's focused on killing his brother so much that he doesn't want to be distracted by anything. Is it a wrong way of doing things? Maybe, but that's for him to decide. Jiraiya said. But that's just it. If he would open up a little and lose that air of arrogance he gained from being pampered by the village, he would have friends who would help him get stronger, or maybe even help him defeat Itachi. But he just wants everything thrown in his lap because he's an Uchiha. He considers the rest of us inferior and weak. Naruto said, slightly angry at how Sasuke used to treat him and the others in the academy. Naruto, you can't make everybody your friend. It's great that you want to, but that's just impossible. I'm sorry to tell you that I see a lot of resemblance between Sasuke and Orochimaru, and I hope he doesn't follow in Orochimaru's footsteps. We can only hope, but I want to believe that Sasuke won't be that stupid. After that they didn't talk until they reached the village, each thinking about the previous discussion. After securing a hotel room for the night, Jiraiya and Naruto took for the woods just outside the village to have a spar. While Jiraiya was handing Naruto's ass to him, the Sandaime Hokage was in his office with the rest of the Junin sensei to discuss the coming threat known as Akatsuki. They would have to be ready to deal with such an organization, which would prove to be very difficult seeing that every member were reputed to be S-class shinobi in the bingo book. Alright, Jiraiya alerted me of a danger that all of you should be aware of. Sandaime said before he started to explain about Akatsuki and who they were after. The explanation took about half an hour, and to say that the Junin senseis were worried was an understatement. Not many of them would be able to defeat a S-class shinobi without help, and the fact that Uchiha Itachi was part of them worried them even more. Itachi was a genius shinobi, virtually undefeatable during his time in Konoha. Who knows how strong he has become. I see that this news troubles most of you, and with good reasons. Akatsuki is a threat not only to Konoha but to the whole shinobi world, and that's why we must prepare ourselves. Sandaime said while resting his chin on his hands. I will now issue your orders, so listen carefully. Any information about Akatsuki is now a S-class secret, so keep that in mind. You're to train you students to become as strong as possible so that they can help fight. Hokage-sama, forgive me my interruption, but do you believe that our students can become strong enough to fight a S-class shinobi and come out alive? Asuma said. Asuma, there's no doubt in my mind that your genins will become some of the strongest shinobi Konoha has ever produced. You all did a marvelous job so far. Just keep on doing what you did and then some more. Yash, the youthfulness of our genin will burn brightly thanks to our help, Guy exclaimed, making the others wince from the sheer volume of his voice. Yes, that too, Guy. The new generation is strong. They proved that during the attacks, and with Naruto's help they will become strong. Sandaime said while glaring at Guy. You sure believe a lot in Naruto, don't you, Hokage-sama? Kakashi said, not even looking up from his orange book. Naruto is the one who will become the greatest Hokage of all times, Kakashi. I can see it when I look at him. Like his father before him, he will become the pillar that supports and protects this village. Sandaime said while looking at the mountain which held the faces of the previous Hokages. How did the village react to the revelation about Naruto's parents? Kurenai asked Anko. Pretty good, I suppose. There are still a lot of people who see him as the Kyuubi, but he also gained a lot of respect for his actions during and after the attack. He still has a lot of work ahead of him if he wants the whole village to see him as Naruto, but he's getting there. Anko said proudly. The Junin nodded. They had seen just how much Naruto and his clones had worked during the week after the attack. He had taken care of most of the small work, helping repairing the homes of the villagers that had been damaged. He certainly helped the repairs ahead of schedule thanks to his clones freeing others so that they could help on more urgent repairs. Okay, let's get back on track here. Like I said, I want each one of you to train your genins beyond their limits. If they ask why they need such training, tell them that they'll be part of a special group to protect Konoha. Dismissed. Sandaime said before everyone left his office. He sighed, visible exhausted from all the hard work he had been doing the past weeks. He really hoped Naruto would be able to convince Tsunade into becoming Hokage. The Junin senseis just left the Hokage tower and each went their own way, thinking about how they would train their students to deal with such a threat. This would take lots of energy from both sides and they would have to come up with a whole new training schedule as well. Anko and Kurenai, however, were happily talking about their students and already discussing what kind of training they would give them. Alright, when Naruto's back, I'll ask him if he can put the gravity seal on Kiba, Shino and Hinata. That will allow them to get stronger and faster on top of their normal training. Anko was musing out loud. Wait, what gravity seal? I know nothing about Naruto wearing such a seal. Kurenai asked, shocked. Oh, that's right. Well, you see, in the Yondaime's book there's a seal that changes the gravity on your body. Naruto put it on during his training, but I told him that he only could release it when it's a matter of life and death. She said, grinning. Oops, totally forgot about that one. Wonder if Naruto remembers that he put on that particular seal. Kurenai stared at Anko and wondered just how strong Naruto would be without it. That boy was full of surprises, but she knew that already, she thought. It was decided that they would start the new training regime as soon as possible. Of course they would have to wait until the genin were finished with their mission to help rebuild the village. That would take about another week, so now was the time to come up with a schedule. Anko was already smiling while thinking about all the different ways she could come up with to help them train. This would be so much fun, she thought. In the meanwhile, Naruto was getting his butt kicked by Jiraiya during their spar. It became painfully obvious how lucky he had been to be alive after fighting Orochimaru. Had he not been so tired and out of chakra by the time he started the fight, he would be dead now. The difference between a Chunin and a Sannin was unbelievable, and he became aware that he still had much to learn if he wanted to survive a fight between himself and a member of Akatsuki. That's enough for today, Gaki. You did well, but you still need more experience and training. Jiraiya said, honestly impressed with Naruto. Man, I couldn't even hit you once. Naruto, believe me when I say that you did well. Much better than expected, actually. Jiraiya said, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. But nothing, Naruto. You can't expect to become Sannin level in such a short time. Don't worry, you'll get there eventually. Jiraiya said, guiding him back to the hotel for a good night rest. Naruto cursed himself for thinking the way he did right now. He wasn't supposed to be disappointed, but he couldn't help himself. After fighting Orochimaru, he thought he was strong enough to at least hit Jiraiya once, but he had been proven wrong. For the first time he truly saw the difference between himself and someone of Sannin level, and to be honest, it frightened him a little. He even started to doubt himself, wondering if he would ever reach that kind of level. He knew he would have to train harder if he wanted to have a chance against Akatsuki, and somewhere along the line he started to get impatient to get stronger. He should have realized that strength and power didn't come easy and that it took time. Instead of getting impatient, he would have to continue training just like he always did and believe in himself. He stood up a little straighter and followed Jiraiya with newfound courage and enthusiasm. For the next few days, Naruto and Jiraiya traveled from village to village, and while Jiraiya was gathering information about Tsunade and her whereabouts, Naruto kept on training and studying. Jiraiya had made a cage bunshin and ordered Naruto to fight it. However, each day Naruto would get a handicap, like being forbidden to use his sword or using ninjutsu. The purpose of this training was that Naruto needed to get used to fighting at a disadvantage against stronger opponents. Naruto, however, loved the challenge and threw himself into this new training while his clones were working on something else, like chakra control exercises or studying new seals that Jiraiya gave him. He had been pleasantly surprised with Ero Sennin's training. At first he feared that the pervert would neglect his training to do research, but it seemed that Jiraiya had taken a liking to him and was serious about training him. Oi, Gaki, that's enough for today. Naruto heard Jiraiya yell. Unfortunately this caused him to be distracted and he ended up getting hit by the clone's punch. That'll teach you not to get distracted. Jiraiya laughed. Very funny Arrow Sennin. Glad to see that my pain is making you laugh. Naruto said, rubbing his hurting jaw. Whatever Gaki, I have good news. You found Tsunade. Nope, but somebody said he saw her in a town a few days from here, so that's where we'll go. Jiraiya said calmly. We'll leave in the morning. Why not leave right now? Because I don't want to travel at night and because there's a festival tonight and I want to go. Jiraiya said, folding his arm in front of his chest. What? What's so special about the festival? Gaki, think for a moment, will you? A festival is a great opportunity for research. Jiraiya said with a lecherous grin on his face. All those beauties in kimonos having fun and drinking. A chance in a lifetime. I can't believe you, Arrow Sennin. You want to go to the festival just to meet girls. Shut up, Gaki. Just because you're too stupid to enjoy the miracle that is a woman doesn't mean I am. Jiraiya yelled at Naruto. Oh yeah, maybe you didn't notice, but one of the hottest kunoichi of Konoha is my girlfriend, you stupid lecher. Naruto fired back. Don't remind me, I'll never understand how someone like you can get such a looker to be your girlfriend. Ha, it's because unlike you I'm not a pervert. Naruto said, smirking. After arguing for another half hour, both of them left the training area and went to the hotel they were currently staying. Naruto wouldn't admit it to the man's face, but the idea of going to a festival wasn't so bad at all. He liked going to festivals in Konoha but rarely got the chance until after he met up with Anko and Team 8. After a quick shower he changed into a simple outfit consisting of a dark blue pants and a dark red shirt. He also strapped on his holster and his sword cause it wouldn't do to be caught off guard while enjoying the festival. Jiraiya had already left, shouting that if he didn't leave now he would miss out on some beautiful girls. When Naruto reached the festival grounds he quickly started exploring the place. He passed several small wooden stands who sold candy or other food which make him drool at smelling all those delicious things. Realizing he didn't have lunch yet he bought some okonomiyaki before sitting down enjoying the atmosphere. The grounds were filled with people who laughed while drinking and eating or people who tried out the different games. A lot of children were running around having fun and playing, making Naruto smile sadly when he remembered his own childhood. Unlike these kids, Naruto wasn't allowed to play with the other children by most parents, so he had to play by himself. Shaking his head clear of those memories he looked at the children playing with their siblings and parents, hoping that one day he would have his own child to spoil and play with. After finishing his lunch he continued his exploration of the festival and come upon a small stand which sold jewelry for women. Thinking about Anko, maybe he could buy her something. He knew she wasn't the type of girl who liked earrings, so he skipped those, but he didn't find anything that would fit with Anko. She wasn't very interested in jewelry to begin with, so he would have to find something else to buy her. Walking around the corner he came onto the children's part of the festival where lots of games could be played and where you could win prizes. Naruto, who never got the chance when he was younger, decided to look around a bit and maybe even try out some of the games. He didn't care that he was older than most kids here, he just wanted to feel like a regular kid for once. After 5 minutes of browsing through the stands he heard a young girl cry and saw her sitting on one of the stone stairs next to a stand. Hey there, what's wrong? Naruto asked gently. I wanted Sniff to win. Sniff a teddy. Sniff, I wasn't good enough. The young girl cried out. Naruto's heart almost broke at seeing the young girl cry. She was just so cute, wearing a kimono and a flower in her hair. Oh, don't cry, I'm Naruto. What's your name? My name is Akiko. The girl said while wiping the tears of her cheeks. Well, Akiko-chan, would you like it if I won a teddy for you? He said, smiling at Akiko, making the girl nod her head with a huge smile on her face. Naruto took her to a stand where you had to throw some darts at the target. The more points you got, the bigger the prize you could win. Of course, for a shinobi these kind of games were just too easy and normally he wouldn't rip off the owner of the stand like that, but the thought of the girl crying just made him do it. He was careful not to be too good at throwing the darts so that the owner didn't get suspicious of him. Congratulations, young man, you won 78 points, so you get to choose out of all these prizes. The man said while showing which prizes he could choose. Of course, Naruto let his new friend choose and she chose the biggest and cutest teddy of them all. It was a giant fluffy dog easily bigger than herself, which made Naruto chuckle at the sight. She hugged the teddy tightly before thanking Naruto for the great present. You're welcome, Akiko-chan. Now why don't you go show you mommy and daddy your new teddy? Okay. Bye Naruto-nichan. After roaming around a bit more, Naruto made his way back to the hotel, wondering how Ero Sennin had spent his evening, even though he already had a good idea. It probably involved some research, like he liked to call it. Naruto shook his head, amazed at how Jiraiya sometimes acted. No wonder the man didn't have a girlfriend or a wife. He liked spying on young women too much to settle down. He recalled how much the man spied on the girls having fun in the river while Naruto practiced the Kuchio's no Jutsu. He also smiled at the memory of Jiraiya getting his ass kicked by the women on which he spied on when they first met. That memory always made him smile. Entering the room, he saw that Jiraiya was nowhere in sight, so he took a relaxing shower and went to bed, knowing that tomorrow they would leave for the next town. The next morning, Naruto woke up before dawn and saw that Jiraiya had made it back during the night, so he slowly sneaked towards the unsuspecting Jiraiya. He didn't have to sneak since Jiraiya was out like a light, reeking of alcohol, making Naruto pinch his nose. After filling a bucket with ice-cold water, he stood next to the Sannin and quickly did some hand seals before whispering, Suiden, Suiryuden no Jutsu, and splashed Jiraiya. Of course, Naruto had powered down the jutsu enough to only a very small dragon, but it was enough to wake up Jiraiya, who spluttered and yelled thinking he was drowning. Seeing the man's reaction, Naruto couldn't help himself and started laughing his head off. It had been too long since he played a prank, and who better to prank than the old pervert? What's going on? Jiraiya stammered after realizing he wasn't drowning. Wake up, Ero Sennin, it's time to leave. Naruto said after he got his laughing under control. Think this is funny, Gaki? I swear kids have no respect for their elders these days. Jiraiya yelled, making him hold his head in pain from the hangover. Don't blame me, you needed a shower anyway. Naruto said innocently. You smelled like you bathed in alcohol. You're just jealous that I hooked up with several young women last night. Jiraiya pouted. Yeah, right. Naruto snorted. And how much money did you lose on them? Jiraiya was about to answer when he realized that he did spend a lot of money last night, so he wisely kept quiet, not wanting to give Naruto the satisfaction of being right. Again. He grumbled something about being misunderstood and disrespect for elders before he got up and got ready to leave. After paying for their stay, they left for the town where Tsunade had been sighted. They would run to the town, not wanting to waste time. In Konoha, only a handful people were already up and running, even if the sun had yet to fully rise. On training ground 17, Kiba, Hinata and Shino were busy running their daily laps before the training truly started. The three of them had been informed by Anko and Kurenai that their training would be pushed to a whole new level and that they better be able to keep up, otherwise there would be dire consequences for all of them. When the genin asked why their training was intensified, Kurenai told them that they were now part of a group that would have to protect Konoha from future threats. That of course raised more questions, but Kurenai told them that they would be informed when Naruto was back from his mission. The genin were training in speed and strength training, and each had to continue developing their own skills. After the warming up exercises, they had to spar against each other and their senseis before they were allowed to work on their own, while Anko and Kurenai provided assistance and help. In the afternoon, they could either train with their friends or family to learn new techniques. Team 10 was doing much of the same training, but they were also trained by their parents so that they could learn more of the advanced techniques of their clan. Ino, Shikamaru and Choji had been told that they were now strong enough to learn some of them, and they were eager to start training. Even Ino had surprised them by fully dedicating herself into improving herself. She and Sakura had been training with Hinata for over a month now, and the changes were visible even if they still had a lot of catching up to do. Speaking of Sakura, she had practically begged Kakashi to help her get stronger and even promised him to stop fussing over Sasuke all the time. Seeing that Sakura was serious, Kakashi had spent several days with her, coming up with a training schedule she could follow, and to his surprise Sakura followed it to the smallest detail. Kakashi had been a bit disappointed when the third member of his team had quit being a shinobi after the Chunin exams. The boy had never been fit to become a shinobi, and Kakashi was somewhat glad that he realized it before he got himself killed. Last he heard, the boy was now going to a regular school trying to catch up with his fellow students. This left him with an incomplete team made up from Sakura, Sasuke and himself, making them unable to do missions outside of the normal D-ranked missions and team training. Sasuke had complained loudly until the Hokage had put him in his place, threatening to send him back to the academy if he didn't stop his childish behavior. Kakashi had been observing Sasuke for a while and didn't like what he was seeing. He always knew that Sasuke was driven by revenge, but lately things had been getting out of hand. Sasuke all but demanded to be taught jutsu so he could get stronger, and no matter what Kakashi said, he didn't seem to understand that power was something that took time to gain by training. Kakashi had been trying to get Sasuke to work together with his team, but nothing seemed to work. Of course, the fact that Sasuke had been much stronger than his teammates didn't help either, but instead of helping them, Sasuke just ignored them, only widening the gap. Today he would have another talk with the boy, hoping that he could get the boy to understand what it meant to be a Konoha shinobi. Right now, however, he was on his way to meet with the other Junin sensei so that they could discuss some group training between the three teams. Asuma had said that all of them would benefit from learning to work together as one group, and he had to agree with that line of thinking. Arriving at the small dango shop, he saw that the other were already there and make his way over to them. Passing a few tables, he noticed a pair of travelers with hats and black cloaks with red clouds on it, but he didn't make any sign of distress or recognition. Finally, Kakashi, I swear you would be late for your own funeral. Anko said, slightly mad at the one-eyed shinobi. Calm down, Anko. You know there's no helping it. Let's just sit down and enjoy lunch. Asuma said, showing that he too had seen the two suspicious men and he didn't want to talk about anything remotely connected to his students or training. They spend their lunch in good laughter while keeping an eye on the men, but halfway through lunch Sasuke showed up wanting to talk to Kakashi. Here you are, I looked everywhere for you, Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke said, showing at least some respect. He knew better than to piss of any superior shinobi, especially one who could teach him many techniques. Ah, Sasuke, what's the matter? I want to train with you, I need to get stronger. Making Kakashi sigh at his answer. Sasuke, I told you a dozen times before that you can't get stronger just by knowing more jutsu. Kakashi said calmly, but from the corner of his eye he saw the two men getting up and leave. So help me train instead of lecturing me like you always do. Sasuke said, losing his temper. Don't these idiots realize that I need to get stronger so that I can kill that man? He thought. Fine, meet me later on at the training field. Kakashi said before getting up. The other Junin sensei got up as well, knowing that Kakashi wanted to investigate those travelers. Kakashi and the rest left in the direction the two men had left and quickly reached a relatively remote place in Konoha where not many people came. He looked in front of him and saw the two men standing there as if they were waiting for him. The four of them slowly approached them, not wanting to provoke them unnecessary. Hitaki Kakashi, Mitarashi Anko, Uehi Kurenai and Sarutobi Asuma. It has been a while, hasn't it? The smallest of the two said while taking of his hat, revealing a handsome young man with black hair tied in a small ponytail. Uchiha Itachi, why are you here? Come to finish the job you started all those years ago. Kakashi asked. And who is your friend? Finish the job. I have no interest in that foolish little brother of mine. As to who I am, my name is Hoshigaki Kisame. The man next to Itachi said. When his face became visible they saw a shark-like man with a blue face. If not for Sasuke, then why are you here? Asuma asked. We are here for the Yondaime's legacy. It's in our organization benefit that we retrieve him. Itachi said. You're after Naruto. I suppose that organization is called Akatsuki. Kakashi said, shocking both Itachi and Kisame. I see you have been warned about us. I wonder how you gathered that kind of information. Itachi asked them, not really expecting an answer. What's the purpose of your organization? Why are you after Naruto? Anko asked. She had been quiet till now, but she wanted to know why they were after her boyfriend. Suddenly a voice sounded through the clearing, yelling out. Itachi. The group turned and saw an enraged Sasuke standing there staring at Itachi with clear hate in his eyes. Before anyone could stop him, he charged at Itachi, making hand seals and produced a Chidori, aiming straight at Itachi's heart. Sasuke, don't. You don't stand a chance against an opponent like him. Kakashi yelled, trying to stop his student from getting killed. Sasuke didn't listen however and tried to stab Itachi through the heart, but to his shock his brother just grabbed him by the wrist and twisted it, making Sasuke fall to his knees, the Chidori slowly disappearing. Itachi looked at his brother before slowly shaking his head and twisted Sasuke's wrist further, effectively breaking it, making him scream out in pain. The Junin sensei were about to help Sasuke, but Kisame placed himself in between them and hindered them from helping Sasuke. My foolish little brother, do you know why you're still so weak? It's because you don't have enough hate. Maybe this will help you into getting stronger. Itachi said before locking eyes with Sasuke. Slowly his Sharingan changed into something different pattern, and the moment Sasuke looked at it he started screaming and collapsed not a second later. Let's go Kisame, we didn't come here to fight. The Junin sensei rushed to Sasuke's side, checking him over, trying to wake him up, but nothing they tried seemed to help. Aside from his broken wrist he seemed psychically fine, but they guessed that Itachi's attack was a mental attack, making it impossible for them to help him. They took him to the hospital before going to report to the Hokage, knowing that he would be very interested in what happened. 2 weeks had passed since Naruto left Konoha in search for Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin, and frankly Naruto was getting tired of chasing after her. The woman just stayed long enough to gamble a bit and leave a small trail behind before she left again. The travailing wasn't so bad thanks to the many spars Naruto had with Jiraiya, for which he was thankful. He still hadn't managed to land a hit on the man, but he was lasting longer every time they fought. Naruto had even started to create a new technique, but so far he was having trouble figuring out how to make it work. On top of that he was still working on the Hiraishin no Jutsu on his free time as well. He could feel he was getting close to figuring it out, but it escaped him at the moment. Jiraiya was having the time of his life, seeing he was traveling again and got many opportunities to do research along the way. He giggled while writing down an idea on his notebook, carefully hiding it from Naruto. The blonde had told him that if he didn't train him properly he would find said notebook and practice a Kaden Jutsu on it. Jiraiya had berated him for threatening to destroy what may become his greatest work yet, but didn't take any chances just in case. He had started to teach some jutsu to Naruto to keep him busy and satisfied while still sparring with the blonde, knowing that he would need the experience in the coming years. They were currently on their way to the town where Tsunade was rumored to be, although he started to doubt his information gathering skills a bit, seeing they never seemed to arrive before she left again. Like Naruto, he was getting tired of chasing her while he could be out there enjoying the many girls each village presented. He perked up when he saw the lights of the town in the distance and he ordered Naruto to pick up the pace a little. So not even 10 minutes later they made their way through the town looking for a hotel. Not wanting to spend the evening in the hotel, Jiraiya told Naruto that they would go out to get dinner, to which Naruto happily agreed. After dismissing 2 restaurants because the waitresses weren't cute enough according to Jiraiya, they finally came upon a small place that Jiraiya approved of after checking out the girls who worked there. Naruto didn't bother to say anything, already used to the way the pervert selected their eating places. After all, he had been doing the same thing for 2 weeks now. They were greeted by the owners of the place and went inside to choose a table. Naruto was looking around and thus he didn't see Jiraiya freeze in his tracks, making him bump into the man's back. Why did you stop? Tsunade. Finally, I've been looking all over the country for you. Jiraiya exclaimed loudly. Naruto just peeked from behind the man's back, eager to see the Sannin they had been searching for. Jiraiya, what are you doing here? Naruto heard the woman say. She was beautiful to say the least, even if he thought that her breasts were way out of proportion. He understood why men thought she was one of the most beautiful women in the world, seeing many men love big breasts. Next to her sat an equally beautiful young woman with black hair holding a pig in her arms. Naruto stared at the pig, wondering what kind of person kept a pig as a pet. Like I said, looking for you. Mind if we join you? He said, already sitting down. Guess not. Who's the kid? Tsunade asked, pointing at Naruto, who was annoyed at being called a kid. This is my new apprentice, Namikaze Naruto. Jiraiya said before ordering a bottle of sake and some food. Naruto, meet Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin, and her apprentice Shizune. Nice to meet the two of you. Naruto said, slightly bowing to both of them. He figured that it would be best if he showed some respect. Namikaze. Does that mean you're? Tsunade asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Namikaze Minato was my dad. He nodded, earning a gasp from Shizune. I'm also the sacrifice. He continued, knowing that both of them knew about the Kyuubi. I see, so why are you here? Tsunade asked while drinking a bit of sake. Did you hear about the attack on Konoha? Jiraiya asked, receiving a nod from both women. Did you also know that Orochimaru was behind it? Yeah, I figured he was the one behind it, but what does this have to do with me? She asked. While Sensei survived the battle thanks to Naruto's help, he has decided to step down as Hokage. He realized that it was time for a much-needed change. And that's where you come in. Jiraiya said, refilling his saucer with sake. He wants me to become Godime Hokage, doesn't he? She said before grabbing the bottle of sake. Yes, he does, so what do you say? Jiraiya nodded. I refuse, being Hokage only gets you killed or worse. Being Hokage is shit, no way do I want that title. She answered, making Naruto frown. Tsunade, you. Jiraiya said, trying to reason with her. Don't, okay. Just don't. I lost two of my most precious people to that title. That job is cursed. She said, glaring at Jiraiya. Nay, Ero Sennin, this is the woman Sandaime Jichin appointed as his successor. Can't say I'm impressed so far. Naruto said while staring at Tsunade, who turned to look at him. No need to try and scare me with that look, I've faced worse than that. Listen kid, I don't know what your problem is, but it's not my business, okay? My problem is you insulting some of the greatest heroes the world has ever seen, including my dad. Naruto snapped at her. While I understand that Konoha reminds you of the people you lost, it doesn't give you the right to insult the position of Hokage. You have no idea what you're talking about, so you. Oh, spare me your dramatic story. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know that you lost both your little brother and lover during the war and that both of them dreamed of becoming Hokage. Naruto said, shocking her before she glared at Jiraiya, who said he didn't tell anything about her past. How do you know about that, you brat? She said, grabbing Naruto by his shirt. Sandaime Jichin used to tell me stories when I was a kid about Konoha's greatest heroes, and while he changed names and dates I realized that he meant you when he ordered me to go with Ero Sennin. Naruto said while looking Tsunade in the eyes. He wouldn't show weakness to this woman. I believed him when he told me that you were a fantastic kunoichi, but I see he was wrong, you're nothing but a coward and a hypocrite. That's it, you and me outside right now. I'll show you why I'm considered the strongest kunoichi. Lead the way, Tsunade Bachin. Naruto smirked, inwardly smiling at seeing her reaction to him calling her old. The party of four stepped outside, and if Shizune didn't stop them they would have started fighting right in the middle of the street, but fortunately she managed to persuade them to fight just outside the village. Jiraiya was trying to defuse the situation by talking to both of them, but neither Naruto or Tsunade would back out, and he muttered something about troublesome blondes, making Naruto laugh, remembering Shikamaru's catchphrase. Last chance to apologize, brat. Not a chance, Bachin. Well Jiraiya, I'm sorry to deprive you of yet another apprentice, but this one deserves it. She said to Jiraiya. I'm not too worried, did I tell you he fought Orochimaru to a standstill? Jiraiya said. Well, technically that's not true, but she doesn't need to know that. He thought. Do you really expect me to believe that? Tsunade said while looking at the Toad Sanin. There's no way this kid could take on Orochimaru and live. Nevertheless, it's true, Jichin and I fought him during the invasion. I also fought and defeated your ancestor, the Shadaime, after Orochimaru used a kinjutsu to bring him back to life. Of course he controlled him, but I still fought him. Naruto informed her and Shizune. He knew he wasn't entirely truthful about the battle, but that didn't matter right now. Tsunade was shocked to hear that Orochimaru would go to such lengths to destroy Konoha and to kill Sarutobi-sensei. But then she remembered how he used to be and it didn't seem so surprisingly anymore. Still, next time she saw him she would kick his ass for using her ancestor for such a purpose. Right now, however, she had a fellow blonde to punish. Whatever, brat, let me show you what happens when people piss me off. Tsunade said, turning back to her, pissed off mode. Naruto didn't answer but just made a few Kage Bunshin who ran straight at her. Tsunade of course wasn't so easily distracted and quickly dealt with the clones before she attacked herself. She threw a punch at Naruto who dodged it, so she punched the ground instead, making a large crack appear in the ground. Naruto knew immediately that if he got hit the fight would be over, so he evaded and dodged several more punches and kicks from the blonde kunoichi. Who's the coward now, brat? All you do is evading and dodging. She sneered at him. She realized that maybe she was exaggerating a bit in her rage towards the kid, but she couldn't help it. He had pissed her off, so now he would have to pay the consequences. It's called tactical retreat, and who says I'm only defending? Suddenly Tsunade felt someone grab her from behind and looked over her shoulder only to see a Kage Bunshin smiling back at her. Somehow knowing what Naruto was planning, she tried to get rid of the clone before it exploded. The clone, however, had a firm hold on her and refused to let go and smirked before exploding. Jiraiya and Shizune were worried for a moment before they saw that the explosion was much smaller than usual, so when they saw Tsunade standing there with only her clothes a bit burned and only taking minimal damage, they relaxed. Impressive, brat. I'll give you that, but you'll need more than that to get rid of me. She smirked at Naruto. You're lucky I reduced the amount of chakra to a bare minimum so that the explosion wouldn't hurt you too badly. Naruto said before he saw Tsunade disappear in front of his eyes. She slammed her fist into his gut before hitting him in the face, sending him across the clearing. Bet you didn't see that one coming, did you, brat? Why don't you sleep on it a little while? She laughed loudly. She stopped laughing, however, when she saw Naruto getting up, only rubbing his jaw but otherwise fine. Now I see what the pervert meant with freakish strength. Naruto said, making Jiraiya wince as he knew this was going to cost him. Fine. Didn't want to use this, but guess I don't have a choice now. Naruto just lowered his hand and a second later a perfect Rasengan appeared in his palm. Tsunade, however, was shocked that Naruto actually could perform an A- rank technique like the Rasengan. Sure, he may have been Minato's son, but this was ridiculous. Jiraiya, you taught him that move. No, I didn't. He knew it already when we first met, and not only that, but he's close to figuring out the Hiraishin as well. Causing an even bigger gasp from both women. You know, Tsunade Bachan, I don't understand you at all. Naruto said softly. For someone who claims to love her little brother and boyfriend so much, you sure don't hesitate to insult their dreams. What's that supposed to mean, brat? Their dream was to become Hokage, the strongest shinobi in the village, and for that dream they were willing to risk everything. It didn't matter to them that they might not make it or get killed, their dream was that important to them. Naruto said while looking at her. They sacrificed everything to make that dream come through, and even though they didn't make it, there is no way that they regretted anything. Wanting to become Hokage is what got them killed. Tsunade said, not wanting to discuss this with a brat she only just met. Bullshit. The war is what killed them. They died protecting Konoha and protecting the people they loved most of all. Naruto shouted. Yet all you do is insult their memory and their dreams. They would be ashamed of you right now. Naruto said while running straight for her with the Rasengan in his hand. Tsunade was distracted by Naruto's words and was almost too late to dodge the attack, but once she got control of herself again, she nailed him right in the gut before trying to kick him. Naruto felt the punch impact on his already queasy stomach and almost emptied it before he saw her leg move. Quickly jumping aside, he evaded what might have been the finishing blow. He shakily got to his feet and raised his head to face Tsunade again. Touched a nerve, didn't I? Naruto thought, smirking before continuing his rant. What would they think of you now if they were alive? Instead of the woman they loved, they would see a coward who takes the easy way out by blaming everything on the title of Hokage. Every time you insult Konoha and the Hokage name, you insult them and their dreams, and I will not stand for it. They wanted to be Hokage so they could protect those they loved the most, meaning you most of all. Tsunade was getting more and more pissed at Naruto's words, not so much at Naruto but more at herself, knowing that the blonde was saying things that made a lot of sense. For the first time in all these years she wondered if she hadn't been doing things the wrong way. Did she really blame them for trying to become Hokage? No, she was proud of her little brother and lover, but grief and loneliness consumed her after their deaths. She felt tears welling up in her eyes and cursed the Yondaime's son for being as annoying as his father was. They would have wanted you to realize their dream in their place instead of running away, and they wouldn't want you to be lonely and miserable. Stop running away from reality and live so that once you meet them again you can look them with your head held high. Naruto all but yelled. He could see the doubt in her eyes, but he pressed on. Just like Hinata all those months ago, Tsunade needed to hear these words. Shut up. It's not that easy. Tsunade said with tears running down her cheeks. Life is never easy, but you're given the chance to make their dreams come true even if only a bit, so take it. Why are you so persistent to get me to change my mind about this? Because like your brother, your lover and my dad before me, my dream is to become Hokage. He said, making Tsunade look at him with surprise showing in her eyes. So you want to become Hokage because your dad was the Hokage, is that why you learned his techniques? Are you trying to become your dad? She wondered out loud. Not at all, I've been dreaming of become Hokage ever since Jichin told me about being a Hokage, and that was long before I knew who my dad was. And about his techniques, I learned them because they're a link, a way to remember him by. I'm constantly making my own jutsu, and as a matter of fact I'm creating one right now that could become just as strong as the Rasengan. It's far from complete, but one day it will be. Naruto said honestly. A technique that rivals the Rasengan. At your age. I find that hard to believe. Tsunade said, secretly impressed. Tsunade, Naruto already has created several techniques, so I wouldn't be surprised if he succeeds in his endeavor. Fine then, how about a bet? Tsunade said to Naruto. What kind of bet? You show me that move in 2 weeks, if I'm impressed I'll give you this necklace. Tsunade said. And seeing by your reaction you know how valuable it is. And if I lose? Then you'll give up your dream to become Hokage. Don't you think that's a little unfair to ask me to give up everything? Aren't you confident in your own skills? No, just checking, but you're on. You might as well give me that necklace now because I'm going to win this bet. Naruto said while punching the air. After that Naruto left for the hotel saying that he needed rest to start training the next day. Shizune too left to get some sleep while Tsunade and Jiraiya said they needed to talk some more. They would talk until late that night about, and even then Tsunade was refusing to become the Godime Hokage, but Jiraiya could see that Naruto's words had shocked her. Maybe, just maybe, she would change her mind, but he would have to see in the next 2 weeks. The next morning Naruto woke up after sleeping very soundly. He was a little worried about the bet, but he knew that he wouldn't give up on his dream. All he had to do was work on his new jutsu, and he had plenty of time and ideas to do that. He even thought about using his cage bunshin, but that would be considered cheating in his eyes. Besides, he wanted to show the old hag that he didn't need extra help from his clones. He took a shower before leaving the room in search for some breakfast. He quickly found a small place where they sold some obento lunch boxes and bought 2 of them. One for breakfast and the other for lunch later on that day. After eating breakfast he got ready to start training. His new techniques was pure chakra manipulation, just like the Rasengan, but proved to be much more difficult to create. So far he had managed to shape it into its desired form for only a few moments before it lost its composition. He didn't have any trouble shaping his chakra thanks to the training he did for the Rasengan, but for this technique it seemed that he needed to start out small and gradually make it bigger. So that was what he did for the next few hours. He shaped his chakra into the form, only it was so small it fitted into his palm, but he noticed that he could hold it a little longer than before, so with newfound enthusiasm he continued training until nightfall. When he got back to the hotel he was satisfied with the results of his training that day. He had succeeded into holding the shape for over a minute, so he hoped that by tomorrow evening he would be able to hold for 2 minutes. He entered the room and, like he suspected, Jiraiya was nowhere to be seen, so he just took a shower and relaxed a bit before reviewing the seals of the Hiraishin. An hour later he heard someone knocking on the door, and to his surprise it was Tsunade's apprentice Shizune. Shizune-san, is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong, but I wanted to have a word with you. She said, entering the room. I would like to explain Tsunade-sama's action from last night. Explain. What is there to explain? Naruto said calmly before sitting down again. Please do not judge Tsunade-sama after last night. She isn't a bad person, she's just. Shizune-san, it seems to me that you're under the impression that I hate or dislike Tsunade-bachan. Naruto said softly. I assure you that's not the case. On the contrary, I'm sure she's a wonderful person, and that's why I did what I did last night. What do you mean? Shizune asked, perplexed. I challenged her to make her doubt herself and her reasons to hate Konoha. Jichin chose her to be his successor and I trust him completely. If he says she's the best person for the job, then I believe him. He said, trying to explain his actions. But when I saw her I noticed just how lost she was. For someone like me who wore an emotional mask for almost my whole life, it's easy to recognize the signs of loneliness. You noticed that? Shizune said while looking down. Of course, she hides by gambling and drinking because it takes her mind of things. I used to shout all the time, play pranks and annoy everybody. You can hide a lot from people by acting, but the eyes always shows the truth. He said with a sad little smile. Shizune nodded hearing that. You should know that you got through to Tsunade-sama last night. Shizune said. The fact that she's betting her necklace shows me that she is taking another chance. I don't understand what the necklace has to do with it. Naruto said confused. The necklace is cursed, or so she believes. She gave it to her brother and lover as a token of her trust in them. But both of them got killed shortly after receiving it. Shizune explained. After that she kept it for herself. Well, guess I'll have to show her that she's wrong about that necklace, won't I? Naruto said full of confidence. Naruto and Shizune talked for a few more hours about themselves and about general things. Shizune discovered that Naruto was actually a very sensitive guy who was also a very good listener. He could also tell stories with such conviction that she was sitting at the edge of her chair waiting to hear what happened next. She was very surprised when he said that he had a girlfriend that was almost 10 years older, and when he told her name she actually fell of her chair. She remembered Anko from when she still lived in Konoha. Naruto told her about the 6 months they spent together in the Forest of Death, making her shiver as she recalled that particular training place pretty well. When Shizune left she thought that she had started to form a tentative friendship with the blonde shinobi and wished him good luck with his jutsu, to which Naruto replied that the necklace was as good as his, making her smile at his confidence. She went back to the hotel she stayed at with Tsunade and entered their room hoping her master would be there and not gambling and drinking without her supervision. Tsunade-sama. Are you here? She called out when opening the door. Shizune, where have you been? I've been back for hours. Tsunade said while tapping her foot while glaring at her apprentice. Ah, sorry Tsunade-sama, but I went to speak a bit with Naruto-kun. Shizune said going over to her bed where she changed into her nightclothes. The brat. Why did you talk to him anyway? Tsunade snorted loudly. She still hadn't forgiven or forgotten his harsh words from the other day. Please Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun is actually a very nice person if you get to know him a little. Shizune said softly before crawling into her futon. Tsunade however stayed quiet and she too got ready for bed, but the feelings she had been getting ever since she met Naruto were on her mind and sleep didn't come as easy for her. She tossed and turned in her futon for hours before sleep finally claimed her. She resolved to talk to Jiraiya later on and maybe even go check up on the blonde, without him knowing of course. In Konoha people were finally getting things under control again. There still was a lot of work to be done to repair the damages, but things were starting to look up again. The most urgent repairs had been done and now they would start to focus on repairing the rest of village. People started to get over the shock of being attacked in their own home and slowly but surely they felt safe again. They went outside without fear of being attacked and most of the people were ready to begin with their daily lives. The Sandaime however was far from happy. The fact that Uchiha Itachi and his partner had entered the village without anyone noticing was something he couldn't accept. If AS rank Nukenin could get inside the village like that, things were seriously wrong. Konoha would have to change its ways if it wanted to survive in the shinobi world. If they started showing weakness like that, it wouldn't take long before other villages like Iwa and Kumo would take advantages of their problems. He seriously hoped Naruto succeeded in bringing Tsunade back as Godime Hokage because he was too old to deal with stuff like this. Another problem was Uchiha Sasuke, who was still in the hospital after his brother's attack. According to the medics, Sasuke was psychically healthy but his mind was heavily attacked, and who knows what this would mean for the already rather unstable young shinobi. It seemed that the young Sharingan user was so focused on revenge that he even forgot to worry about his own personal well-being. Sandaime sighed loudly and took out his pipe to relax a bit. Just when he was about to light it, someone knocked on his door and he ushered them in. Good day Hokage-sama, teammate reporting for duty. Kurenai said while giving the Hokage a slight bow. Ah yes teammate, let's see here. The Sandaime said while ruffling through the stack of scrolls. Not this one. He said before grabbing another scroll. Not this one either. Aha, perfect. he said while presenting Team 8 with scroll. The mayor of a nearby village is asking help to deal with a gang who deals in human trafficking and slave trading. You are to scout out their numbers and locations and report back so we can send out the necessary forces to deal with them. Why can't we deal with them, Hokage-sama? Kiba asked politely. He might be on good terms to him thanks to Naruto, but he knew he wouldn't get away with being disrespectful. Because Kiba-kun, organizations like these always have a huge number of men. While they are normal thugs and villains, their number is just too great for one team to handle. Sandaime said. He didn't mind answering question as long as they were asked in a respectful way. Understood Hokage-sama, we'll leave right away. Kurenai said. She was a woman on a mission, literally. She hated those kind of men who abused women and children, treating them like common cattle to sell and use for their own profits. Team 8 was dismissed and Kurenai told them to meet at the main gate in half an hour. The genin nodded and went to prepare for their new mission. When they met at the gate, the four of them were armed and ready to leave. The village wasn't that far, so they made haste and hoped they would arrive after about 2 or 3 hours. While making their way to the village, Hinata came to the conclusion that this was the first time in a long time that they did a mission without Naruto and Anko by their side. Kurenai agreed but said she was confident that they could do this mission on their own, which of course set Kiba off to agree loudly. They hopped through the trees much to the enjoyment of Kiba and Akamaru, who were in their element. Hinata and Kurenai were talking about something and Shino was keeping quiet as always. Shortly after lunch they arrived at the village and Kurenai told them to wait just outside while she tried to gather some information. She knew how these kind of men operated, and once she was inside the village she would be marked by them. A beautiful woman alone would be the perfect target, and even though she could always fight her way out, that would ruin the mission as the gang would be alerted of shinobi presence. So she used a genjutsu to make her appear as an older lady on her way through the village. She used her skills to listen to the conversations of the townspeople and the other women. She hated gossip, but this was one time where it actually had a use, so she paid close attention to what was being said. After listening to the women gossip and talk for a good 20 minutes, she figured that she had learned everything she could find out from them, and she bought some food just to remain in character before getting back to her genin. She didn't waste any time with looking around a town in search for any shady people, knowing that would bring her under suspicion. Arriving back at the place where she left her students, she quickly dropped the genjutsu and motioned them to follow her back into the forest. She asked Hinata to use her Byakugan to scope the area to check if they were truly alone. Hinata quickly confirmed that everything was safe. Alright, I didn't get much information, but I did find out that one of men from the village had noticed some activity not far from here. Kurenai said while giving each of them a can of juice. According to him, there might be a bandit camp several miles south from here. Sensei, if they knew where the camp is, then why didn't they take any action? Don't forget, Hinata, that these are simple townsfolk. They're not trained for combat like we are from young age. While bandits and thugs are not really a threat to us, except in large numbers, but for them they are life-threatening adversaries. Kurenai explained, which was true. A regular bandit was no match for a trained shinobi even if they were genin. Only when their numbers were big they could become a threat. So how do we proceed, sensei? Shino asked. We'll slowly make our way towards the place where the camp supposedly is. Kurenai said before standing up. Hinata, when we get close enough, I want you to use your Byakugan to find them and make an estimate of their numbers. Hinata nodded, showing that she could count on her. Shino, I want you to use your bugs as well to look for any captives. She said, pointing to Shino. Kiba, you'll be our backup and watch our back. Both boys nodded their consent. Remember, under no circumstances are we to engage the enemy. If we alert them now, we'll lose our chance to capture them all and free the captive people. The three genin nodded and they slowly, in shinobi terms, traveled through the forest in search for the camp. They didn't have to search long as Kiba alerted them that he smelled meat being cooked over a fire right. Hinata activated her bloodline and scanned the area. Her Byakugan was able to see a great distance and she quickly found a large open area with held a large number of tents and cages filled with women and children. Her blood started boiling as she saw in what condition they were kept, and it took a lot of restraint not to kill the men in the camp. Sensei, I found them. She whispered. Approximately 1.5 miles ahead. Very well, let's move closer, but be careful not to get noticed. Kurenai said, guiding her team closer to the camp. They slowly moved closer to the camp, careful not to be heard or seen by the thugs and bandits. Thanks to Hinata's Byakugan, they were able to avoid detection and they reached the camp safely. Kurenai ordered them to their positions so that they could get an estimate of the number of men and the layout of the camp. The cleanup team would need to know as much information as possible so they could successfully wipe them out without risking the prisoners. Half an hour later they met up at their previous position and they made their way back to Konoha as quick as possible. When they arrived at the village it was close to nightfall, but they went straight to report to the Hokage. Maybe he would issue a strike that very night if there was a team available. Kurenai and her team entered the tower. They were told that the Hokage was still in his office and that they were free to go see him. The Sandaime Hokage was just finishing up his last paperwork of the day and just wanted to go home and rest. The last few weeks were having a heavy toll on his health. He sighed when he heard someone knocking on the door but told them to come in, thinking that if he didn't do it tonight it would be waiting for him in the morning, and the mornings were even worse than ever. Hokage-sama, Team 8 reporting from their mission. Kurenai said, bowing slightly to her leader. Ah yes, please proceed, Kurenai-san. Sir, after a small information gathering we discovered the camp about 3 miles south of the village in question. The camp is placed inside a clearing surrounded by trees. We got closer to determine their numbers and the layout of the camp. Very well, do you have an estimate how many they are? The 4 of us counted a force of about 50 to 60 men armed with knives and swords. At the time of our mission no shinobi was seen amongst the men. They are however well organized and the camp is well guarded as well. What about the prisoners? How is their condition and numbers? The prisoners are situated in the middle of the camp surrounded by tents and heavily guarded by several men. The number is about 30 women and children, mostly girls. Their condition is bad. Most of them are malnourished and some of them are wounded or hurt. The children are of course frightened, but the women are taking care of them. What is your opinion on how to act? Sir, I propose we take immediate action. Although there were no signs that they would leave in the coming days, the longer we wait the more chance we have of losing them. The Sandaime nodded, thinking exactly the same thing. The safety of the prisoners was a priority and the village had paid for the elimination of the gang and the rescue of their townspeople. He pressed a button and an Anbu arrived not a few seconds later. Get me the 2 Chunin teams currently on standby in Mitarashi Anko. He said. The Anbu nodded and vanished in a puff of smoke. Hokage-sama, can we come as well? Kiba asked hopefully. I'm sorry Kiba-kun, but not this time. The 3 of you did an excellent job today, but you've traveled back and forth between the villages. Because of that you're tired and your chakra reserves are low, which could endanger the survival of the captives. The Hokage said, placing a hand on Kiba's shoulder. Don't worry about it. Thanks to the info you and your team provided, the strike team will have no problem completing the mission. You can be proud of yourselves. Thank you Hokage-sama. Hinata said. Though she wanted to help with the mission, she had to admit that she was tired and she wouldn't want to be a liability to the other teams. Kurenai-san, if you're up to it I want you to go with them and provide a distraction with genjutsu allowing the team to attack. Understood sir, I'll be happy to help. Kurenai said before turning towards her team. Get some rest and meet me tomorrow at the usual time and place for training. You all did great today, next time you'll have a change to help out more, I promise. Your sensei is right, don't be hasty and things will come soon enough. The Hokage said before dismissing the genin. Kurenai met up with Anko and the 2 Chunin teams and started relaying the information she had gathered. They had quickly come up with a plan to deal with the thugs fast and efficiently. A half hour later they departed for their mission. She knew she would have to tell her team what happened tomorrow and Anko told her that she would help out with the training as well.